Some of the content of Patriots Unfiltered may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world's original podcast.
Welcome to Patriots Unfiltered.
I don't think Stretch's going to be doing as much of that as he is going to be helping Vrabel manage the clock on
situational
game.
football.
Yeah.
Did he go to your school, Paul? Was he a graduate?
He has not taken the course.
He isn't matriculated? No.
He has not taken the course, so we'll see. The jury's out on him. Yeah.
Malcolm was sticking to the coach's decision answer.
What was that like for you guys when you guys went to that Super Bowl, right? You actually got to watch it?
Should I call up some more of my Facebook memories that have just been peppering me all week?
I covered that team, and that offense was already
Well, let me
on
ask
the
you a
decline.
question on the 18 offense.
Mike, take a step back.
Does
Ball nowhere time.
Drake won the ping pong championship last night.
Did he?
Yeah. He's a killer.
We got our guy.
He's a killer. I think I'm going to do a roast. I'm going to try to do a roast.
You're going to do a roast?
Like
That
like
seems a little aggressive for Super Bowl.
I just think it's kind of odd Super Bowl fare.
Yeah,
I don't
really?
think it's all that
I'm
hard.
making oysters Rockefeller.
Not the tenders with no bone. That's
Yeah,
not
no
a, that's
chicken
not a wing.
tendies.
Right, that's not a wing.
That's called a boneless chicken wing.
It's a tender.
No, it's a tender.
It's a
Chicken
boneless
tender.
chicken tender.
Why do you have to be stubborn?
This is Patriots Unfiltered.
Presented by Toyota's official website for deals, buyatoyota.com.
All right, welcome into Patriots Unfiltered. That's right, everybody. It's Deuce in the host chair today. Where is Fred? Is he a tropical?
I don't know. We're going to have to try to get through without him.
Parts unknown.
That's
We'll
what
do our
that's what he
best.
instructed us.
I know, we got to recap a Super Bowl. Of course, the big news, Jeremiah Farms re-signed this morning, according to his agent. So plenty to get here today, but we're officially in the offseason, guys. It's kind of a nice feeling now. The 2024 season's behind us. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles, your world champions and
Super Bowl champions, not
Super Bowl, just the Super Bowl. There's a league in
Like,
Europe somewhere that
right.
maybe
Right.
we don't know
wanna-
for sure.
You don't want to offend
If
anybody.
the Eagles would beat the Rain Fire or something of that nature.
Yeah,
no?
exactly.
Or Ryan.
Rain. Yeah, Anyway, we're here. Give us a call. Give us an email. Shout out. Just the three of us, guys. And I guess the place to start is at the Super Bowl. The Eagles
happened.
blowing out the Chiefs. Paul,
Blowed out.
I don't want to spoil the results from our pregame, what do you call them, odds that we were picking, but
Over-unders.
I felt like I went into that pick of just like I was so beaten down by the Chiefs. I'm just like, they're just gonna figure it out. I don't know what else to say. I feel terrible about it. I'm gonna pick Patrick Mahomes to go off. I'm gonna pick Travis Kelce to go off, and I'm gonna pick the Chiefs to somehow find a way to win that game. And I kept waiting for it to happen. I kept waiting for them to show signs of life. Too little, too late. Never happened. Pick 6, Cooper DeJean. That was probably the moment for me where I was like, holy crap, this seems like it's happening today.
Yeah, the biggest upset to me was the fact that Alex isn't here because Alex was the only one who picked Philadelphia.
Oh.
And we all know that our girl Alex can take a victory lap. So I'm a little surprised she's not
She's
here.
probably
especially with
running
all the,
down here if
you
she
know,
hears
the
this.
Kendrick halftime and
Yeah.
all the commercials, the pop
Yeah.
culture aspect.
I
I
know.
figured this would be prime time for young Alex, but
This
I don't
is
know. Maybe
for
she'll be
her,
by later.
As we were talking about
Yeah.
before. This is
Yeah,
for her.
well, I watched some of the commercials, maybe not as
Yeah.
close as Evan. You watched them too, right? A little
Yeah,
bit?
I mean, I wasn't, I didn't take notes, but I watched some of the commercials and halftime show, obviously, but we'll get to that. We can
Yeah.
start with the football.
Start with the football. Ev, what were your takeaways? What did
Well,
you think when you were
I-
watching that unfold?
First of all, I just thought that I was most surprised by the lack of answers that Andy Reid had for Vic Fangio and for that Eagles defense. They looked totally outclassed, coaching and personnel wise. But just watching back some of the recaps of the game, I did not break down the all 22 because not my team. But I just reading other people that did. It seemed like Fangio just eventually got kind of simple and was just rushing for and playing a lot of quarters and cover 3 in the back end, and it wasn't anything overly creative or exotic. It just they were playing better defense than the Chiefs were capable of playing offense. And I know a lot of the talking points out of this game is about the trenches and building the line of scrimmage like the Eagles did, and that's certainly a big takeaway of mine as well. But there's a conversation now that needs to be had if you're trying to spin this towards the Patriots of how to go about doing that and which side of the ball takes emphasis and which side is more important. But it was cool to see that become a big talking point and have people recognize the offensive and defensive line play of Philadelphia and how dominant they were.
Do we do that too much, Paul, after a team wins the Super Bowl? You look at them
Absolutely.
and you say, this is how
That's
you have
it.
to do it. That's it right
That's
there.
it.
You know?
Yeah, that's it. That's the way you win. That's the only way you win. See what happens? That's what you win. Just completely, I agree with everything Evan said. Completely dominant. For 60 full minutes, it was really not competitive at any point. The one thing that I would say that I would be a little bit different than most people, and I'm not taking anything away from the Fangio aspect or the simplicity of the game plan, just I just felt like it really exacerbated the talent difference. And the one thing that I said that I said Kansas City was going to win, so I'm not trying to tell you now, I actually, but I did make one comment, and I said if Jalen Hurts plays similar to the way he played against Washington, I do think that Philadelphia will win, because I do think, and I think Evan said this all last week, Philadelphia is the better team.
Yeah.
I thought the difference in quarterback was going to be the difference in the game. Jalen Hurts vastly outplayed Patrick Mahomes in this game, and I think that's why they won. I know that everybody can point to the fact that the Chiefs, got completely shut down. I think a big part of the reason why they got shut down was less about being harried and harassed. I know that's like the Mahomes apologists are going to tell you he got sacked 6 times, and I think he was terrible in this game. I think he had plays to make and didn't make them. He kept throwing the ball into the ground. He kept making his receivers make very difficult catches that shouldn't have been that difficult. Now, there were some drops there, too. I thought Kelsey showed his age a little bit, and the DeAndre Hopkins drop was completely inexcusable.
He's reportedly retiring
He
today.
didn't. That's not
No, that's
true.
not true?
That
All
was
right.
a fake account.
Stupid Twitter.
That was a fake Adam Schefter account. Yes.
Oh, God, they got me.
But I will say, Jalen Hurts was really, really good in this game, both with his legs and his arm. And they're unbeatable. They're going to put 40 points on the board. That defense isn't going to lose.
Yeah.
Let's say 33. So they had a pick 6. We'll call it 33. They're not going to lose too many games doing that. I thought Mahomes was terrible. Again, there's an overreaction. So now, he's not really good at it.
That's true.
That's the game.
I agree.
Well,
So
of course,
he's not really good. So let me just say this before you guys can continue with the football. I just want to congratulate the Patriots, because evidently they won on Sunday based on based on my Twitter.
No, mine too.
Agreed.
The Patriots.
Not like us, Paul.
No,
The
it's-
Patriots won.
Yeah, no, it's
so
great news.
congratulations on a 4-13 season that you
Right.
won somehow, something.
Well,
yeah,
we did win.
Patrick Mahomes is out of the conversation. Tom Brady remains the GOAT, and that'll remain as is.
And
because
that
of
was
this
going to
loss.
remain no matter what happened on Sunday.
No matter
because
what
he has
happens.
seven,
According
he
to
has
your
7
station.
titles, and
Yeah.
7-4 is a big gap, and now it's 7-3 still. So
Yeah, I got vibes early on of the 07 Super Bowl where you could just tell immediately that the Giants came to play.
you want to
that
know the
day,
only difference? Is Philadelphia is vastly better than that Giants team,
Yeah.
and they were able to pull away
Yeah.
because it was the same thing.
Yep. Yeah.
The only difference was the Patriots were so much better than the Giants, 2 touchdown favorites. This was a pick'em game. This was a 1-point game. The teams were even coming in, and Philadelphia played as much better as the Giants did. The Giants were better for 60 minutes that day, but they just weren't good enough to completely create separation. Philadelphia ended this game. I thought the game was over in the first quarter. I mean, technically it was probably the pick 6 in the second quarter.
Yeah.
But I never thought this game was in doubt, just based on the way it started.
It's one of the funny things. I know you say it a lot. Bill used to say it when a game declares itself. You understand. And, this is an example to me of a game declaring itself because it's just so obvious. One team is here to play today, and they are on fire. And,
hats off to them.
As
They
a
were-
coach, how
they
do
were
you
really
get that
good,
out of your
Philly.
team in that spot? I mean, I think everyone respected the Giants' pass rush way back then. But just on certain days, you see certain teams come out, and they look prepared, and they don't look tight, and they're ready to go. And that was just what stood out to me. But real quick programming note, they are rerunning the Super Bowl here on the TV in front of us. So if you hear us comment, not quite Red Zone Paul, but Super Bowl Paul, maybe we chime in on.
I got no red
on
zone
some
comments
plays
in this
as it
game
comes
because there was
by.
not one meaningful play in the game, so I'm
No.
out.
I just going back to the whole team building thing of it all. I think the part that gets people optimistic about watching a game like that is you don't have to necessarily, no offense to Jalen Hurts, but you don't necessarily have to have the unicorn quarterback to get to the top of the mountain. And I think what happens is when you go from Brady running the NFL just directly to Mahomes running the NFL, you get this feeling of we can't win if we don't have that kind of guy. Like if we don't have a generational talent at the quarterback position, then we're screwed. And Jalen Hurts is a really good quarterback, but the Eagles and the way that they've built up their roster, if your owner invests in the roster, if you draft correctly, they were able to really build a super team around Jalen Hurts, and that's what, how they got here. I don't think Jalen Hurts on his own gets you to this point if you're Philadelphia, but I mean, just looking at their roster from top to bottom, I mean, it's absolutely loaded, and it's through all avenues. Free agency, Saquon Barkley, you trade for AJ Brown, you draft Georgia Bulldogs in the first round every single year.
It's a good point about it all across. Like it's high-priced free agents. It's low-priced free agents like Zach Bond.
Yep.
It's incredible drafting. It's shrewd trade like AJ Brown. It's a really good point that it wasn't just one thing that they did.
Right. And really that's why I think Howie Roseman is the gold standard right now, because Laurie gives him the flexibility to spend the money, and that's big, but they also just have this ability to find talent everywhere in spades, just all over the roster. Even you mentioned Zach Bond. Milton Williams has a huge game. Third round draft pick at a La Tech. Like not someone that is necessarily super heralded coming out. Josh Sweat was a fourth round draft pick a couple of years ago. So you're finding these guys not just in the first round. The one thing the Eagles do that I think is also interesting with the draft, they kind of go consensus. Like they draft a lot of the consensus name brand. We're going to draft from Alabama. We're going to draft from Georgia. We're going to draft Jalen Carter. We're going to draft Devontae Smith. Like they don't necessarily go off the board too often, and you're like, who? Like why did they draft that guy? So there's something to be said for that as well. But just the way that they've completely built up that roster, and even going from like Jason Kelsey to Cam Jurgens, who's not as good as Jason Kelsey, but it wasn't really that major of a drop-off going from a Hall of Fame center to the next guy in line who they had in waiting, for a couple of years.
With a second-round pick.
Yeah.
So it's sort of doing what Belichick did for years.
Right.
Identifying where the guys are starting to age and getting replacements ready to go.
Yeah, well, Fletcher Cox is aging up. You go Jalen Carter maybe at a certain point, like we don't need him. I'd even point out Nakobe Dean is another example of a guy who he's too small. He falls a little bit, but they're able to take a chance on him. He becomes, a good player despite some of the questions that came out during the pre-draft process. But I just think to me, both teams are kind of a testament to what you said, Evan. I think that the Chiefs, we pumped them up for being really good with their draft picks. And I went on with Arcan last night, and that's what he asked me. He's like, what's the model here? And for me, it's the same thing. You got to draft well. You got to hit on some of these mid-round guys that, day 2, late day 2, early day 3, picks that we a lot of times consider throwaways. You got to hit on some of those. And if you don't, you look at the Patriots roster right now and you're like, we got a couple players. I don't know what we have beyond that.
Yeah, he just doesn't overthink it, Howie Roseman. Cooper DeJean was the 40th overall pick. He was a first-round talent. Now, he came into the draft hurt, and I think that was a big reason. But there was also some questions of he's kind of a tweener. Is he a corner? Is he a safety? Is he really going to have the athleticism to play on the outside? And Howie Roseman looked at it and said, football player. He's just a really good football player, and we're going to draft him. And as it turns out, looking back on it, how did he get there? Like, how did he wait around until the 40th pick? And the draft is now pretty shocking. Quinyon Mitchell, just an awesome rookie as well, playing on the outside from Toledo, and you go to the Senior Bowl and you see him, and he has this huge week down there in Mobile, and he's a consensus first-round pick, ends up an Eagle. Like, those types of picks are just all over their roster. And, Hurts was a second-round pick. Like, it just, the whole team is like that.
I mean, Paul mentioned Zach Bond, and to me, I imagine us being here, in March, whatever the year might be, and the Patriots sign a one-year deal, a guy from the Saints who was a special teamer, and you kind of throw it away. You think Christian Ellis, you're thinking one of those kind of guys. And it's amazing how sometimes things start rolling personnel-wise, and it all just seems to click. And you plug a guy in, and it seems to work because, maybe you got a little bit extra talent up front. It's a little bit easier. But, to draft 2 impact players in the secondary like that, which, coming into the season might have been one of their biggest question marks. You knew they had a great front seven. You knew they had a great offensive line. They had the weapons in place. But they go out, they add Saquon Barkley, kind of a Corey Dillon type move in 2004 where he puts you over the top. But then, just to get that kind of play from two rookies in the Super Bowl, I mean, it's like, it's kind of Patriots like with Malcolm Butler. And, when those guys, like, unheralded, but you plug them into the right team in the right situation and the momentum starts rolling, all of a sudden you've got something special. But
Yep.
so let's see, are we too early?
It was top to bottom, and it is very impressive what the Eagles have put together. They were just there 2 years ago, and they were able to sort of retool and, just real quick, you just rattled off 3 enormous names on that defense. The defense was in shambles at this time last year. They were 10-1. They had fallen apart. Yeah. A lot of it was internal turmoil between the coach and especially the coach and the quarterback. They had a lot of problems, but defensively they couldn't stop anybody. You get those 2 rookie defensive backs, and then you have a really quality signing with a linebacker. You bring in an adult in the room, and Vic Fangio, and all of a sudden everything is fixed. And this is the only thing, like, I'm really impressed with Philadelphia. Everything Evan said about Roseman, I 1,000% agree with. I really like the way they go about business. I think they're very aggressive in their spending. I think that's a big part of it, too. I think they've been at the top of the food chain when it comes to spending on the roster. Again, I'm not talking – where's my one? I'm not talking about the salary cap. I'm talking about spending on talent. Like, if you want a number 1 receiver, if it's Chris Godwin, if it's T. Higgins, whoever you have to pay for him. So you might say, well, that guy's not perfect. He's not, because they wouldn't be available if they were. But you need to figure out who's good for you and then pay accordingly and not be so concerned with it. The one caution I have is I think everybody says, well, that's the way to do it. Like, Mike, you were teasing about at the beginning, like the one-off, the snapshot. And I agree, that's a great way to build a team. It's really hard to do that. Mm-hmm. San Francisco is a very similar structure. They're starting to lose some of those pieces now. But the Niners, with Lynch in Evans' idol, Shanahan, did it this way.
In overtime of the Super Bowl.
Right? We're going to have a stacked roster with about, I don't know, 10 or 12 Pro Bowl / All-Pro caliber players. And then we're just going to plug in a quarterback who'll be good enough. Yeah, they did. San Francisco did the same thing Philadelphia did. It's really hard to do. Mm-hmm. Like, you go back and just rattle off those draft picks. There ain't a miss there. Like, since Carson Wentz, like, they have not had a major whiff on one of those important picks. Every guy that Evan mentioned is a first or second round pick, and they're all major contributors. It's the same thing that San Francisco did. Yeah, it's really hard to do. I just would caution and say, well, that's how you have to do it. It's like that. Remember that old Snickers commercial with Marv Levy? We're satisfied. No one's going to know it, and everybody's all excited. No one's leaving until we figure out how to win. Yeah. And it's just like silence in the locker room. It's a lot easier to just say, well, that's how you build the team. Build from the trenches. Well, what if you want to build from the trenches and instead of taking, Landon Dickerson, you end up with Cole Strange? Like, you tried the same thing. Like, the Patriots tried it.
Wrong guys.
They got the wrong guys.
Well, one went to Alabama, one went to UT.
Devontae Smith instead of N'Keal Harry. There are high draft picks being used on the same positions that Philadelphia used them on. You didn't get the same caliber player.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I would also, the other cautionary thing that I come out of this game with is there's going to be free agents from the Eagles roster, some big guys, Zach Bond, Milton Williams.
Josh Sweat. Line him up. Come to New England, baby.
Josh Sweat's going to probably made himself some money.
But I would just be...
Coney Ely, anyone?
I'd be cautious about overpaying for those guys because it worked in Philly when this collection of talent is around you.
Mike's point about Zach Bond.
And all these guys are sort of part of a 1/11th of a defense. And if you go out and you pay Josh Sweat like he's supposed to be, this double-digit all-pro caliber edge rusher, double-digit sack guy, I don't know if it will be the same without Jalen Carter and Milton Williams and those guys in the middle of the defense pushing the line of scrimmage and, guys on the other side over the last couple of years as well. Like, I just don't know. Nolan Smith's a hell of a football player. Like, he's not going to be on the other side for him. Is Hassan Reddick before that. Like, those guys make an impact.
In regard for the Patriots, how about taking a run at Hassan Reddick's replacement and Bryce Huff, who was inactive in the game? Clearly not really part. Take it, see what it would take to get him.
It just feels like there's just a lot of let's just pay everybody on the Eagles defense and bring him here.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
why
get
I like Mike's point about Zach Bond. Like, maybe he's a little bit closer to what you saw as an edge guy in New Orleans than what he was as an off-ball guy in Philadelphia without those monsters in front of him protecting him. If I were Philly, I would say, I know it works with him here. I'm going to resign. I'm going to make sure I resign him.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I would. I'm with Evan. I'm not sure I would say, like, well, let's give him, $80 million to come and be an off-ball linebacker for us. I'm not sure he's going to translate.
To me, this all feels the same bucket as overreacting to the Super Bowl winner and looking at how they did it and saying, well, this is what we have to do. And not only that, but we also could use some of their players because their players are those kind of championship, guys that have that pedigree now. And Milton Williams made himself a ton of money, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. I mean, if I'm the Patriots, I'm still considering those guys. I think those guys would fit what they were going to do on defense from Tennessee, if that's what they carry over. But I want to talk to you guys about Kansas City. Like, where do you go now? I look back
They
at...
got to get better.
I
gotta
remember...
get better players on offense. There's no reason that what Evan described should shut you down. We're going to... everybody's all over... And let me just put it this way. Let me just open it to Evan. So... what would you have done if you were the Chiefs offensively, Andy Reid? What would you have done to combat that?
Typically, when you go up against Fangio in those types of defenses, you have to nickel and dime. Like, you have to go with the quick passing game, the underneath passing game, because their whole defense, their whole structure is designed to take away big plays. So that they're playing quarters, they're playing soft cover 3 on the back end. All they want to do is make you march. They're not going to give it away to you. So, could Patrick Mahomes have gotten the ball out quicker? Could there have been more designs of quick passing and things like that? I'm sure there were. Like I said, I didn't study the film closely, but just in general, I think that's how they want. You're kind of playing into his hands in a way with doing that. But if you're really, really efficient in doing it, like we've seen the Chiefs be able to do before, then you can still pull it off, and you kind of shorten the game that way.
I agree with everything you said, and I would just say, again, I'm like Evan. I didn't necessarily break this down. It's not my teams. Whatever, it happened. There's two things that stuck out to me, and I've heard a ton of criticism. Well, Andy Reid, he had no adjustments. They just kept rushing forward. And they had no. What do you you have 5 offensive linemen to block their 4 guys. Should I keep 2 tight ends to make it 6 on 4? You need to get the ball out quick, right? So the first part of it is the offensive line was horrific, including everybody's favorite, Joe Tooney.
Oh,
all right,
playing out of position.
Now he's out of position. Okay,
he's trying his best, Paul. Come on,
definitely out of position.
Okay, no, and everybody was applauding him
it
because
goes from look at him, he plays left tackle
seamlessly to left tackle.
Right.
Okay,
not the ball. No,
he's a guard.
Yeah.
Okay, so they got completely overwhelmed up front. But the bigger problem to me was Patrick Mahomes, who picked the wrong day to have a really bad game. He kept trying, to Evan's point, instead of taking the little dink and dunks, he kept trying to make plays. And he kept trying for kill shots, running around. The pick to Deji, that was awful. That was Mac Jones-like. This little, roll one way, throwing it back the other way. It was a terrible, terrible play, just trying to do too much. And when he wasn't trying to do too much, his guys were letting him down. I just don't think they're good enough offensively with their players. Now, maybe that will change when they get Rice back.
Yeah.
But they didn't have guys. I thought that they played very vanilla defense, and they were not getting you're watching these plays, and yeah, he could have caught that, but he's not really open there. He's having to, the throws are a little bit low because Kelsey's not the same guy anymore.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a good game. Yeah, I thought he had a couple of plays on third downs. This whole game could have been a lot different if you catch a couple of those third down passes early in the game.
Right.
That I thought were catchable.
Sure.
And then Mahomes, man, was he bad. I'll just say it. I thought he was terrible.
There was a lot of Patriots vibes of like the down years, I say in air quote, for
Yeah.
where like they just didn't have enough offensively, and they were kind of putting it together, whether it was the offensive line in like 2015 or it was the receivers in 05, 06, that range.
Yeah, I think it's a great comp.
Right, where they're just kind of putting it together, and that's what it felt like with the Chiefs. They trade for DeAndre Hopkins in season to try to put a Band-Aid on a bigger wound, and it just didn't really seem to ever take hold with Hopkins. And Travis Kelce, to me, is nearing the end, if not already there.
Yeah.
So he's not a centerpiece item on your offense anymore. I really like Rice, but he's going to be coming off a major injury, and so we'll see. And I think Worthy, proved that he can be a good player. Now, a lot of that happened in garbage time, but he had a
assume
nice
Worthy will
playoff.
be a much bigger part next year.
Yeah,
I
he
think that's
had
him
a
and
really
Rice,
good end of the year, really good postseason. So I don't think it was just the garbage time
I agree.
stats in the Super Bowl for him. But they have to shore up left tackle. Like, they have to have a real solution at left tackle, which they haven't been able to do, whether that's draft and develop or signing somebody
And
or
what if
whatever.
they lose Trey Smith?
Yeah, which is definitely possible.
I don't think we've heard the last of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs,
I
but
hope we have.
I do.
there's been a
I
lot
love
of
that take. I love that.
I mean, we
take.
spent
I don't
love
believe
it.
that
No,
was
you do.
first.
No,
I
you
do
do.
not.
You do.
we've spent so much time over the last years, really, just making the constant comparison to the Patriots and this Chiefs team. And based on this game, does this have some kind of impact on how you view Patrick? I know he'll be back, but is this just a one-off? I mean, is there any truth to what people are saying about, well, Patriots never got blown out like that? Like, they always kind of made a run. They always kind of found a way.
Before.
Yeah, right.
And what did that do? They went to like 3 of the next 4.
But do you think that this is something that is a characteristic of their run that's going to be talked about? That
Oh, I don't know what's going to be talked about. You guys can talk.
It depends on how many they actually end up winning, I guess. But like, I think the biggest thing to me, and I said this on Catch 22 last week, it was just getting kind of annoying that was the prevailing narrative out of this game was, is this the greatest dynasty we've ever seen? Not because I necessarily think that they don't deserve their flowers, but it just was like, this is the only topic we have to talk about.
I just think we're just trying to make it about us. Like, how can we get into this? How can we get emotionally attached? Like, did you see Jim Murray yesterday?
Yeah.
Like, Jim Murray was hilarious yesterday.
positively
Well,
on
because
cloud
this guy is
nine.
standing
He
there
was just
for
like-
2
he's
weeks
just, like,
telling,
floating.
cramming us down
But it
to
was
these
so-
Kansas City. Like, there was real conversation happening on your station last week about whether or not the Chiefs were a better dynasty than the Patriots. And
To
that's
this
just,
point.
But no,
Not overall.
It was all
I
Reed
listen
or
to that
Belichick,
station more than anybody.
Mahomes or Brady,
It was
Kelsey or Gronk. Like,
Correct. As of now.
and as of now, it's not close.
No, it is. The 7-year period is better for Kansas City than it was the first
Okay,
7 for the Patriots.
but that's half of the battle.
But that's what they're doing. But
I
that's
don't-
what they're comparing.
I don't think so.
Yes,
I think
it is. You don't fall into the trap of listening to the bombast. That's what they were comparing. Is the first 7
Every
years as a
guest that
starter
they
for
had
the two
on, it was,
quarterbacks.
who would you rather, Andy Reid or Bill Belichick? Andy
Oh
Reid,
well, that one's
you know.
the entirety because it's comparable. The other one guy's only played 7 years, but Brady played 20. Like it's apples to grapefruits.
I understand why people like Jim Murray and other Patriots fans are now taking their
I thought that
victory
was-
lap.
I thought
it's
that
like
was
the
hilarious.
72 Dolphins taking their victory lap whenever the last undefeated team loses a game, right? Like,
It's not even close.
It's the exact same
One
thing.
thing never happened.
We're
I
just-
understand why Miami does it, and I think they're kind of tool bags for doing it too. To be honest,
Who's our Mercury Morris?
Well,
We need our Mercury
he's
Rest in
Morris.
peace.
I understand why if you're one of those Patriots fans that's taking a victory lap right now and saying, "See, you were a little premature with all of that talk, weren't you?" Then I'm right there
Yeah,
with you.
I don't think it is.
You take your time. You deserve it.
What would you do if you're Kansas City though? I mean, I like last year we were kind of jealous they got Sumatia, right? It felt like
They gotta get
they
better
got the
players.
guy, and then it just, to me, it also illustrates that even when you're taking the moves that make sense, maybe the moves that we would have liked in the draft, it's not always going to work out with some
But
of
what
these
if
guys.
that's? But what if that's the guy? Like that's what these other teams have done. That's what the Eagles did at center.
stick with them?
Yeah, you get a second-round guy to replace the guy in maybe 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. He's the guy.
I guess the
I
question
don't know.
I'm wondering
He
though
wasn't
is,
good when he played as like out of the chute.
Yeah,
But
no.
has he even played since September?
Right. Well, that's what I'm kind of getting at because I went on again with Arcane last night talking a little bit about last year's draft class. So is the Chiefs, are the Chiefs more likely to invest in Suamati or give him another chance than the Patriots are with Caden Wallace on the right side? I mean, similar kind of disappointing years. I can't go exactly apples to apples of who played what and how well, but can you take more time?
Is going to get a chance to play.
Yeah, but can you take more time when you're
I don't
the
know
Chiefs,
if
you know?
it's going to be good, but I think you'll
I
get
think
a chance.
I think if you're the Chiefs, you take less time because you're in a win now mode where you can't afford to just put out a rookie there just for developmental purposes. And I think this was down the stretch. And I know Caden Wallace had his injuries and had issues staying healthy. But when you see them rolling out guys like Trey Jacobs and guys like Vidarian Lowe, and it's like these guys aren't part of the future. They're not. Right. They're not going to be here. Whereas with the Chiefs, it's like how can we get the best 5 offensive linemen on the field to play in the Super Bowl, like not worrying about the best 5 for the next 3 years.
And I'll be honest, like that's why Joe Thuney's playing tackle.
Right,
they were just shooting their shot to try to get the 5 best out there. It didn't work.
There were
I thought
conversations.
It was flawed, at the start, but they got away with it against Buffalo. They didn't get away with it against Philly.
There were conversations about. I can't remember the exact combination of players, but they did have some options to kick Thuney back inside and start a different.
Humphreys, I think, was ready to play.
Maybe Kings, Sumatia again or something like that. Again, I don't know the exact particulars, but they decided to stick with Thuney at left tackle, and it was kind of disastrous. Like, not only was he not very good,
the other guy wasn't good either.
The left guard replacement wasn't good either, so they kind of made 2 spots weaker by doing that. But
which is why I wouldn't have done it. I would have lived with DJ Humphreys at left tackle, and I would have let Mahomes at least go in and say, well, I know I'm going to be okay in the middle.
Right.
The interior, I'm not going to face anything, there, but I'll have to worry about the edges. This, you had to worry about everything.
As we've learned with Patriots, most important part, don't let that instant pressure run right up. So game a little bit out of the way, but I got to ask you guys about your game watching experience, your food.
Oh, yeah. How was your roast?
That's a long story.
Oh, no.
No, it turned out fine.
I really can't believe you did a roast on
no.
Well,
and it turned out fine.
It wasn't exactly a roast. What happened was I had my eye on a certain product at Trader Joe's, which turned out to be a pre-cooked roast. So I just threw this little box of meat into the oven and heated it up for about 20 minutes, and everyone was very happy. So I didn't exactly make a roast. I kind of just had like a pre-made beef thing. So it didn't quite work out that well. But I made some taco dip. I made
Trader Joe's pre-cooked roast.
I know it is.
Remind me not to take up any of those Super Bowl invitations.
When you said you were going to make a roast, I was with you, Deuce. Now that you said that you bought the store-bought version.
Well, you know how you're like looking down the barrel of like, this is going to be an all-day affair. I'm going to have like meat thermometers and stuff, trying to figure out how to make that perfect pink. And then, the thing I had my eye on was, I'm like, oh crap, it's already. I thought this was something I was going to have to cook, but it's it was not only pre-cooked, it was pre-sliced as well.
Oh, that's
I didn't even have to cut the thing.
Wow.
So
lazy.
But it worked out fine. Less work. Got to watch the game, plenty of the game. Made some taco dip as well. So I did work some apps in there. I know Fred will be upset with me not having all the apps. But
did you do some apps, Ev?
We did apps. Yeah, we were at a bar.
Boneless chicken.
Oh, you went to a bar.
A local establishment. With Barthy.
We watch it's all coming together.
We watch the Super Bowl together every year. I know it's adorable.
They did the kid and play dance after Mahomes got sacked.
No, but after the Devontae Smith touchdown, that was probably the most excited that we were as a table, because that was like we were kind of joking about 28-3 when it was like 27 or 24-0 and. So
you know
there
what's
was some
funny about
thoughts
that?
Of that.
I saw a meme about that, and they put the 2 scores. It was 28-3 with like 2 and change in the third quarter, and 27. Such a
I
loser.
made the T-shirt. Come on.
Such a loser. 27-0 with like 2 and change, and I'm thinking,
2-12.
Kansas City actually scored 22 points in the rest of the game. Yeah. Like it wasn't all they were down by more points than the Patriots were.
Yeah.
And they didn't quite get. But the bigger thing was Philly just kept scoring.
Yeah. Right.
Like that makes it even more ridiculous that they scored 22 points in the last quarter plus, whatever. Now it was all garbage time, complete garbage time. I don't think even a single point was scored while the Eagles were engaged. It was all garbage.
I was in crybaby.
But they scored it.
I was in crybaby Patriots mode at that point because I was like, of course they're gonna offset 28-3. It's gonna be better than 28-3.
I did,
but then I was gonna make a
How
T-shirt.
could you possibly even spend 1 second thinking that was going to happen in that game?
Because
Patrick Mahomes.
I saw it happen with Tom Brady. So
No,
But
I
everybody tells me Patrick Mahomes is just as good. If
right.
not better.
the
so-
only-
Sports station tells
And,
her,
and I just told you
Ah.
he did what Brady did. The defense didn't do what Brady's defense did.
Yeah.
They didn't take the ball away and give him short
Well,
fields.
he
They
win the
didn't.
game,
They
so he
didn't stop
do what
them.
Brady did.
But he scored Brady scored 25 points in the last 17 minutes, and Mahomes scored 22. He was down by more and didn't have any help from the defense the way that Brady did.
God, you're making me feel worse about it now.
I just can't believe that you spent any time even worrying for a split
Oh, yeah,
second
no, I was
that
worried.
Mahomes can pull off this miracle. He was so bad in that game. He was way worse than Brady was in the first half of the Atlanta game. Way worse.
Yeah, no, he
there was
was.
no indication that Mahomes was going to do that.
But most
None.
importantly, we did do apps, just to let you know.
What do we have? Boneless chicken
we
tenders?
We did bone-in wings.
Good for you.
Bone-in wings.
Congratulations.
Like adults.
Like adults.
We did
I'm
underrated
going to
app.
credit Alex for that.
Underrated app. Pretzel bites
Oh,
or like
yeah.
soft pretzel.
The beer
you know.
sauce or something.
Yeah,
Honey mustard,
underrated.
maybe.
Honey mustard. Underrated. Some buffalo chicken dip was at the table.
Always staple.
Always good. Always good. So we had a good time. It's an annual tradition.
Hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. Did you guys have any drinks while you were there? Because if you did, you should have had a Bud Light, which is easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Got some reads out of the way, right?
There you go.
There we
I
go.
did not have any.
Seamless.
Bud Light, but
Seamless.
I would have if it
I had a handful of Miller Lights. But
yeah.
I had a little wine. Not really. I didn't really feel like going out. After I ref my games, I was a little
did you
tired.
have your legs crossed
I
in
did.
that way that
Like,
you
I did.
you tend to
like
do?
this?
Okay, notice he's not
When
doing
he's-
it
when he was
because he
drinking-
Well,
doesn't.
sorry, I don't want to
drinking
do
the
like
wine.
Paul puts his foot on the furniture. Like I thought your
Yeah,
mom would
come
yell at you for
on.
that. I
Take
mean,
your
come
elbows
on.
off the table.
How comfortable are you? Like, let's go.
They did do a.
Not comfortable at all in these chairs.
They did a pizza eating contest.
Oh,
Pizza eating.
At halftime, and this is when I decided that maybe it was
time to
time
tap out.
to slow down.
You weren't getting in that though.
The nooners a little bit because they were starting to creep up on Kendrick in the halftime show.
And you wanted to be focused.
And I was like, if they don't put the volume on the game back on for the halftime show, I'm gonna lose it. And I might have screamed across the bar to tell them to hurry with the pizza contest. But luckily they ended it right on time. But like, did we really need that? That was my one nitpick of my experience.
Well, you brought up the halftime show. I'm just gonna admit
that wasn't on purpose.
I'm just
Yes, it
gonna admit.
was.
Look, I don't know anything about the beef with Drake. I needed Cliff Notes for it. I thought it was fine. To me, it was every Super Bowl halftime show I've ever watched or not watched. But I know there's a
You
lot
might
of
be
hot
the only
reaction to it.
person on the planet who knows less about pop culture
I know. Well,
stuff than
I'm
I do.
embracing my ignorance in this regard because it feels like it's going to save me from getting into any arguments. Because I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but that sounds fine. Yeah,
I have a
great.
brief statement to make.
Yeah.
But I
I liked
appreciate
it, didn't love it.
No.
That's all. Ev, the floor is yours.
I thought that the set list could have been better. I thought that he didn't. He went with the let's kill Drake / promote my current album and tour approach, which I totally can understand. But for us OG Kendrick fans, like you would have liked to have heard some more
The hits, play
of
the hits.
of the hits.
Yeah.
Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly. Section 80 maybe
Yeah,
even.
that one.
Like anything from those, like Humble and DNA are like party starters, so I get that. Like I get that those are mixed in there, but I thought some of the other songs, and obviously, he had Luther with SZA because he had to, include SZA in the performance.
Isn't it Shizza?
Shizza.
So that was important, but in general, I that's how I felt. I thought it was a very good performance, but I thought the set list could have been tweaked a little bit to make it a little bit more for the casuals, to like make it a little bit more exciting, like a little bit more energy, because I feel like that's the big the hating that I've heard a lot of is that it was kind of low energy ish.
Yeah.
I mean, I like I said, I liked it. I didn't love it. It wasn't moved. I evidently, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't for me. So I guess I'll just stay in my lane.
All right.
Definitely wasn't for Mike.
I
Mike has no
Someone
clue.
explain it.
At least I know like the Drake.
So he
song.
doesn't like Drake. And then I was like, I told these guys, I'm
Oh, no,
like, hey,
away.
not liking him is a little bit. That's
I was
quite-
like,
quite
hey,
the
there's Serena
understatement.
Williams. What's she doing here? She's doing a little dance. Like, I don't know.
It's called the Crip
And then I
Walk.
find there's all kinds of subtext going on. So I apologize. I
She's
just wanted-
also from Compton, which is where Kendrick is from.
Okay.
And she's.
Oh, is this
Drake's
West Coast, East Coast thing we're talking about? a little
No,
bit?
it's not. Drake's from
Drake's-
Toronto.
yeah,
He's
it's from
Canadian.
Canada. Blame Canada.
Blame Canada.
As they say.
No.
Commercials. I don't really know when the good commercial is supposed to go on. Like the commercials just come on. I'm like, well, where are the good ones? Where are the expensive ones? Where are the ones that I'm supposed to pay attention? The only one that really stood out to me was the Duncan one, which I kind of was like, I wanted to see a little more. And then Jordan shows up with Bill, and I thought that was great.
I thought it was awful.
You thought that was great?
I love seeing Jordan there. I know.
The only thing
had
I
a tough
thought
time with
I thought
her.
Jeremy Strong was funny.
Oh yeah.
Now I don't even know if it was
actor.
the one on TV.
I know because there are a bunch of.
I
different
saw a
ones, right?
clip that was like a 7-minute clip on
Mhm.
YouTube yesterday, and the only thing that made me even smirk, let alone laugh, smile, was Jeremy Strong doing like the method acting thing,
That's
coming
his
out of
thing.
the coffee, and maybe it's because I liked him and I really liked him in Succession, but I'm the eldest boy. I like him. The rest of it did nothing for me.
Yeah,
the
I
little
don't-
kid was okay.
This
The
week-
kid from, I guess he's from Gloucester.
Oh
The
yeah.
little kid who
the
makes
little
fun of
Duncan
them
kid.
says,
Yeah.
"Whiz Matt."
I know. I need to. I don't know. There was last year's I liked with having Brady in it and Damon. I don't know. Last year's made me chuckle with Brady just being on the scratcher. But I was so primed up with Jordan after she was at NFL Honors last week, and then when she popped up, I was like, of course. Bill's like, I'll do it, but put her in it too.
No comment. I thought the best commercial was Seal as Seal. I thought that was funny, but also
Which one was that now?
So it was I think it was a Mountain Dew commercial, Baja Blast, and the singer Seal, right?
No, no.
Yeah,
Seal as Seal. I
They
don't know.
literally
yeah.
made him a seal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very very good. Liked that. Dunkings I thought had potential, but I
agree.
don't understand.
Ben goes for it. Like I respect
Yeah.
like Ben goes for it in those ads. Like I like
Yeah.
he totally.
I
goes
thought
for
it was better with Damon. I thought it was better with him than with his brother, and I also
This is me now.
like it. Like the Jordan include like it. I just why like who like she's famous for nothing.
They didn't give her a
besides
line.
Dating Bill, like she just doesn't need to be here. But yeah, that's okay. It's not that big of a deal.
All right, well, you guys chime in on all this stuff. Patty's been holding on for a bit. We'll check in with him to kick things off, as we often do. Patty in Agawam. Hey, Patty.
Hey, what's going on? Good afternoon.
Patty.
Patty.
Let's get to do the Fred. Patty.
Patty.
Oh.
That's
So
not
I
like
got,
him. Usually he's ready.
Yeah.
got a
Well,
little-
he's not.
3,
I got a
2,
little rant going
1.
on today.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
didn't.
Patty. Call back.
This is why I seriously wish Alex.
Patty was
had-
talking.
had
Did you
come
guys not
by
hear him?
Because I didn't. I feel like I didn't really see most of the commercials. The only thing I watched, like I said, but yesterday I watched the Dunkins thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really see most of the other ones. I mean, I saw the visual. That's why I knew when he said Seal as Seal. I knew what you were talking about. I didn't really hear the
I was
commercial.
like, I get it.
Was that the one with the wiener dogs running? There were a bunch of wiener
No,
dogs, like
no,
actual
no,
hot
no.
dogs. No?
Did you watch the Super Bowl?
I mean, not the commercials.
He was
really.
busy doing a roast.
watched- I already told you guys, but for the audience, my favorite part of the Super Bowl is my wife, who doesn't really pay attention to much football, really. She was all in because she bought 6 squares for her company Super Bowl squares thing. And so the whole end of the game, there's all this random scoring going on, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, my God, if Kansas City gets this 2-pointer, I'm going to win the squares. So they got it. So congratulations to Lane, my wonderful wife, who won the Super Bowl squares. A couple $100 for her.
There you go.
I was not involved in that. We're not allowed
Yeah,
to. Right?
no,
That was her company thing. The money went right to her account. I can't even touch it, as I've been informed. But it was kind of
Does
fun.
your wife have a divorce account too?
Those are for some Lulu
That's her
lemons or
private. That's her
something?
slush.
Yeah.
We both have our own
No,
slush
I'm like,
funds.
I
yeah.
thought it was all out. Like, why the checking account that I draw from
Yeah.
has both of our names on it?
Uh-huh.
Like,
yeah.
why do you have a divorce account? Where are you going?
Oh, well, I think it's we both have just our own little side checking accounts with a weekly little
I don't.
stipend that, if you want to buy something nice for yourself, like that's your money. Do whatever you want.
Yeah,
There's no
I don't have that.
you can't put like, oh, I'm going to go spend $1,000 on this from the main fund. It's too much, So side funds, Paul.
You tell her it's too much.
I don't know. You're going to have to do all this
What are
when
you, like a
when you
1950s?
Yeah.
husband?
I
Like,
believe
no.
For a second, he
no.
tells her that he can't.
This is how it's going to work.
Him? He's the nicest guy.
Yeah.
Now, everybody hates talking money, though, right? It's
Yeah.
friggin' worst. Yeah, you know.
Patty's back.
Patty's back. Hey, Patty, what happened?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Oh no.
Maybe it's a deuce issue.
Uh-oh.
I'm
Oh,
here.
He's talking.
Can you hear me?
We just can't hear him.
Oh no, Patty.
Hold on.
I'm
Technical
I'm here,
difficulties.
Was he there
We're gonna
before?
figure it out.
Oh, we can't hear him.
We just. What do you think he would be saying, though, if he was calling in to take his victory lap over?
I think he would have a nice.
He knew the Eagles would win. He had them 41 to 22.
It's a little off.
So there was a field goal instead of a touchdown there. Yeah, he knew Mahomes was going to
Hello.
stink.
Hello.
But we'll never know because
Yeah.
we can't hear.
Hello,
Sorry,
hello,
Patty, we're
hello.
gonna-
Patty, they can't hear you. I have to replace their
We're going to
speaker.
effort this and
we'll
try to get
figure
back
it
to you
out.
after our lunch break. Nobody's
Yeah, maybe we. Yeah,
Nobody's getting lunch today, but we'll just do a random break
Did
anyway
you not
for,
get a
for the
lunch?
fun. I did not get a lunch. Is that the host job every day to order from?
No, I know
certain
sometimes.
place.
I know, like Evan brought in a sandwich. Sometimes you do that.
Sometimes I have, but not. That was my New Year's resolution, but not this time per se.
So we made it to February.
So here we are, guys, off season, and I know Evan and I will be heading down to the combine.
Yeah, when is that?
It's very
When are you
exciting.
guys
2
going?
weeks. 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks.
And we should also point out there's not going to be any Paul on Thursday's show, so be ready. Might be kids show. Get Alex,
kids.
Tamara.
Fred's
Evan.
not going to be here Thursday either, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So prepare yourselves for that as we get ready to embark on the off season. And yeah, like I said, we're getting ready for the combine again, Ev. This is going to be a little exciting. We'll call into the show, Paul, of course, deliver our thoughts. I did a bunch of draft research this weekend. I'm very
Fred
excited.
and I will anchor the coverage.
You'll anchor the coverage here
from the
back
studio.
at the home base. But I did want to talk a little draft, just a
Yeah,
little,
you had
just
your
a little
takes.
bit.
I've been waiting.
Yeah, no, well, I just
His draft takes?
Stalin.
I
He's
think
been stalling.
just one big. Well, this is
Just wait for
our.
you to
Oh
come
yeah,
in?
yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
He
yeah.
doesn't give me any draft takes.
No,
We
no,
were
this
like
is.
all
Well,
day
I came up
yesterday.
with this one. So look, you guys can all make fun of me, but I like to do what
Yes,
I do.
we do.
But I finally just dove in on Travis Hunter. Just really watched him, read everything I could, tried to just look at him as a receiver and as a cornerback. And my pitch to you guys, because everyone's trying to figure out receiver, cornerback. What if he's a third down player? He plays third down on offense and he plays third down on defense, and that's it to start. I mean, of course, get down to the end, you might need to a little bit more. But what if I pitch it like that? He's going to be our third
I
down
don't
guy.
love that.
It's hard to get him to practice it, right? Because you're kind of doing the same at the same. But that's my pitch. That's my pitch. Play him on third down.
It's a unique
I don't love
pitch.
it.
I just think he is.
It is unique.
I've not heard that one.
I'm going to tell you guys something you don't know, but he is explosive. He is athletic. He goes up and gets the ball. And I just, I've been a little lukewarm on it because it feels a little bit like a project to me. And that's, having not really watched him and been wowed by him as much as everyone else probably in the world has. Watching him, if he's there at 4, I'd say it makes sense, regardless of some of the project with which side of the ball is he going to play, what's he going to do. And my thought was just, and I kind of kid about the third down thing, but just in my mind, that's the down where games are impacted the most. And I feel like that guy can make an impact on both sides of the ball, whether he just comes on third down on defense and plays in the slot, and you've got all of a sudden a super athletic playmaker near the line of scrimmage that's going to be disrupting things, not too much unlike what Cooper DeJean did a little bit this year. And then on the other side, all of a sudden, you've got a guy that people have to contend with. He is an issue, and you got to know how you're going to cover him, because I feel like in a lot of ways he is uncoverable. And even when he is covered, it seems like he finds a way to make the ball. So I came around on Travis Hunter a little bit this week, which is stupid.
Well,
I
I'm
know.
all in on Travis
Everyone
Hunter
else
if
has
he's
already been,
available
but
at 4.
try to come to these things on my own. And that was where I landed with him, and I still love Abdul Carter. But one last draft point I'll make is just I think the Patriots need a lot on defense, especially as they transition maybe to a different scheme. And I just think whether it's somebody who's going to play with their hand down on the dirt as a defensive end or somebody who's going to play standing up off the edge on the weak side, that there are a lot of different options to consider in the draft, especially as you get into that 33, 34th overall pick. I think there's probably going to be a couple guys there on those positions. I don't know if that impacts how you approach free agency and you say maybe we don't give Josh Sweat too much money because there are a bunch of these guys. But you know what I mean? Like that, to me, those position groups just stood out because it's really like you talk about edge, But I think it's really two different positions within this defense where we talk wide 9 guys who can just get, like Mike Green, can get off the edge, and you're not immediately going to have to ask him to play the run, to play early downs. I mean, yes, you'd love him to, which I think you could with Abdul Carter, but even if you don't get Abdul Carter, I think there are some options that can impact this defense and help ease that transition really quickly.
Yeah, those are two good points that's very separate. But, like, to start with Travis Hunter, I think he's one of those players to me where it's a best player available situation. And if he's there at 4, like, this is just not the year where you have a ton of options of that caliber of prospect where, you know, a year like last year, you could get picky between, do you want Joe Alt? Do you want Malik Neighbors? Do you want Rome Odunze? Like, you could maybe decide a little bit more between those guys, whereas this year it's Carter, it's Hunter, and I believe there's a drop-off after that. I think that there is a little bit of a drop-off to the next wave of guys, and so if you have an opportunity to draft one of those two, Carter or Travis Hunter, I mean, to me, that's a run-the-card-up situation, right? Like, that's, you've got to make that pick. You know, where does he play and all that kind of stuff? It's kind of we figure this out as we go later. And I know that scares some people. It definitely scares Barth, and we get into it all the time on Catch 22 about this because, you know, he is like, you got to have a plan. You have to have a plan. And I don't necessarily disagree, but, you know, at the same time, maybe he feels like he's a better receiver than he is a corner, and then he gets into the league and realizes it isn't working at wide receiver, and now you have this ability to then transition him to the other side of the ball, and you still have a chance to hit on the pick, and I think that's intriguing as well. But ultimately with Travis Hunter, I think what you come back to is that you're going to get a really good player no matter which side of the ball he plays on, but the question is, are you kind of sapping his superpower by not playing him both ways? Like, is that what truly makes him unique, is that he plays both ways, or can he be good enough at one position that it's worth the pick no matter what? Because if he can only be great by playing both ways, then you have to third downs, or like you have to come up with a creative plan to be able to do something like that.
I think the hard thing right now too is you're thinking about Travis Hunter coming onto this team kind of in a vacuum where, God, we need so much, and we need so much from him if you draft him. If you think about it, if they're successful with this draft and next year's draft, and you get into, let's say, 2026, 2027, and all of a sudden it doesn't seem like it's all on Travis Hunter. He's more one of these guys that Philadelphia drafted, where at the time you're like, oh, Devontae Smith, what? Now all of a sudden he's not even really the focal point. He's just an amazing piece that you have to play with and another part of this whole system. I think that's what's appealing to me. And just the bottom line for me is this guy is special. You know, there's an element to him that is special, and trying to like, well, we have to have the plan and we have to have the exact piece cut out for him, and this is what he's going to do. Like, at a certain point, you just have to look at the guy and be like, this guy is a special football player, and this team is desperate for special football players.
That's what I kind of think about Hunter. You know, and I get the points that the only way I'd be scared away from him is if Evans' doomsday scenario unfolds, and that is he's not good enough at either one to warrant selecting where he's going to go.
Yeah,
I think he's good enough, you know, to warrant a top 3 pick. I don't think he'll be available at 4.
I don't either.
But if he is, I would take him. I mean, I just think the talent is too great, and that's what we can talk all about blueprints and everything. The blueprint is take as many good players as you can find. And once you have, 8, 10, 12 players that are like Drake May and Christian Gonzalez, then you can start talking about competing for Super Bowls and what pieces you might need to put you over the top. I think Travis Hunter is one of those guys that could come in and be that caliber of player. I don't care. I don't care which side. You can decide that. Corner, wide receiver, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and my doomsday scenario, to be clear, like I haven't spoken to anybody that feels that he's not a good enough prospect unless he plays both ways.
No, to the contrary, I think we've heard a lot of people say he can be a special cornerback.
Yeah, and I hear that. I keep coming back to the same thing with that, though. It's just a would you rather game of would you rather an A+ corner or like a B+ receiver, and which one's more valuable?
It's a different game where I come from.
To your team and things like that, and that's a conversation that I'm sure a lot of teams are going to be having in their rooms, in their conference rooms over the next couple of months at the top of the draft is, is he more valuable to us at receiver or at corner? And then the points that you mentioned about the defensive linemen. So Daniel Jeremiah tweeted out, I think yesterday or this morning, that he has 24 starter grades on defensive linemen in this draft, and last year he had 12.
Yep.
So he has double the amount. And I understand that a lot of people hear about value and positional value and think back to Bill and some of the reaches that he's had over the years, and assets do you want to invest in a 3 technique?
Yeah.
Like, you can only have 1 or 2 on the field at once. So like you can't have 7-3 techniques. So like I just, that's where I come at it with Mason Graham. He's a great player, and I know I kind of am beating a dead horse with my take on this, but you have to look at the way that the board is going to stack and like who is going to be available on day 2 at these other positions, and where are the drop-offs and where is the talent.
That's why I think I would pitch in free agency, go for those guys. Try to secure one of those guys, because as much as even if you like Will Campbell, I still get to 4. I don't see Hunter. I don't see Carter. I'm a little torn about Will Campbell. I really like him. I think he's got a great personality. I think he fits Vrabel. But at the same time, it's like, is he even the immediate answer? Even if he's good, is he a day 1 starter at left tackle? No questions asked. I don't quite think so. So I think it's going to be really hard to balance the tackle and fixing the offensive line. That to me seems like the toughest task, because there's a lot of defense, a lot of stuff they need in the draft that I feel good about. There's not a lot of options in free agency.
Yeah, and there's not going to be a lot of options that come available because teams don't just give away left tackles that are starting caliber or above. So it's a tough position. But I'm with you with the free agents. Like Alaric Jackson is a name that I like. Cam Robinson's fine. Like I wouldn't overpay for Cam Robinson, but I think one thing that you saw with the Chargers drafting Joe Alton and immediately putting him at right tackle is that might not have the stigma against it that it once did. And so even if you you sign a guy like Cam Robinson in free agency and you draft a guy like Will Campbell, like, well, maybe one of them is playing right side and one of them is playing left side, and now you have both tackles taken care of, you think, in the future. So I look at that too as, could one of those free agent guys be your right tackle? Because let's face it, like, do they have an answer at right tackle right now either?
No,
like,
they need two.
Yeah,
right.
they need both of them. So, you come back to, maybe this guy's played left tackle throughout his career, and I know we just did this with Chukwuekorfor, and everybody's worried about trying to do that again. It's a different caliber of player, in my opinion, a little bit. Chukwuekorfor, I don't think was nearly as well thought of as a guy.
He had lost his job as a right tackle.
Right, as some of these guys. So it's just a different type of situation, but I look at the offensive line. I still think Will Campbell is an answer potentially for them at 4. Like, we'll see what the arm length comes out with and all that kind of stuff. But I still believe that he's a very, very good tackle. Maybe he would be like an elite guard, but I think he'd be a very good tackle as well. And I think the Patriots are just not in a position to be overly picky based off of where they're at on the offensive line. So I would
like
take him.
The drum is starting to beat a little bit more for Will Campbell. Like,
I feel like it was beating, and then it kind of dipped, and now it's still starting to beat again
I feel like
because
I'm hearing a lot more positivity about Will Campbell in the last couple of weeks.
I mean, you
I
look
don't know,
at that
it
tackle
hasn't
class.
even started yet. It's going to get
I
worse.
know. Well, I mean, and you look at the tackle class, and it's like by the time you get to 33, 34, and top of the second round,
Right.
you're
Well,
in Project City.
That's the other
Well, that's
point,
everywhere.
right? Is like, if you look at 38, you're probably right at the end of that, like, let's call it 2.5 or 3 tier tackle run, right? The Josh Connerlys, the Ariante Urseries, depending on Josh Simmons' health, like where he ends up going in this draft. And so now you're having this conversation a lot like you had last year of like, do you trade up at the back end of the first round to get one of those guys? Do you now wait a little bit longer and take your guy in like the 3rd round like they did last year? And is that enough of a solution to the problem? Because I just don't believe that you're going to be sitting there at 38 with a ton of options at tackle, just like last year where they were kind of stuck in between at that point. So maybe they use the Judon pick and like, extra picks to kind of package up to move back in to the 20s. But even then, I think you're having some of the same conversations. Like Simmons blew out his patellar tendon. He had the same injury that Cole Strange had. Cole Strange missed an entire calendar year of football with that injury. So, like, you're looking at Simmons as a player that might not even play for you in 2025. So that's, even if you like the player so much that you're willing to take that risk, we were talking earlier about what should Kansas City do. Like, that's a move that the Chiefs make, right? Where they can afford to stash him, and they can afford to wait until he's healthy. And if he's not healthy until after Thanksgiving, they're okay with that. The Patriots need immediate answers at that position. I don't know if he's going to be one of those. I don't know if he's going to be healthy. So it's a tough spot to be in at tackle, and that's why I think you have to, maybe to Paul's point of like why all these names are coming back to Will Campbell a little bit is because he's really the best option. Like he truly is the best option to fill that need and really feel like you've filled it and not just taking a flyer.
And I guess, and I don't, I'm not as in the weeds as both of you guys are yet. And I just felt like when the season was winding down, as the playoffs were going on, it was Campbell and Banks. Now it's just Campbell. Mm-hmm. Banks is more like in the teens. Yeah. And Campbell is the only top 10 guy. So I guess that's what I feel like I'm starting to hear more and more about. And if that's the case, I'm all for Will Campbell.
Yeah.
If he is clearly that much better, so okay, you would take him at 8, but you don't take him at 4. And I think Evan made a really good point. I don't think they're in a position to be overly picky. Yeah. They gotta find a guy who's both talented and fills a need. Now, the silver lining there that I keep the snarky comment is pretty much anything that they take will fill a need. Yeah. So you can just find the best player.
One other point I'll make on the draft before we take a break is that I just think, again, there's receivers to be had day 2. There's receivers to be had. There's speed that you can add. I've been consistent with that since this season. I think there are a lot of guys out there that, fall through the cracks. You get there. It's just, you start to mess around with these mock drafts and you're like, get to that second round pick. You're like, there's some front 7 guys that are pretty good and that I'd be excited to add to this team. And even when you get to that 3rd round pick, you still get guys like, I don't know if Isaiah Bond is, that guy in the 3rd round, but, guy who's explosive, who, those kind of traits I think are what this team needs. So that's my 2 cents on the draft as I went crazy last Friday and into Saturday. It was pretty fun. So I had
I like
to
it
catch up to
when
speed.
Deuce gets
I just
to
got
this
on a
point, he's got
roll.
some
I started
tweaks.
going through it. Well, I knew the
Like it.
combine's coming up. And the combine, I think, which I've learned years, Paul mentored me the first time we went there. I had no idea what I was doing, what I was in for. But it's a lot more fun when you go in and you just have, I don't need to break down 17 different games of these. I just want to know a little bit about
As many players
the top
as you
10
can.
guys at each position. That was
Yep.
kind of my goal over the weekend, was to get to 10 guys each.
I
and
always
just
felt
get a
like if I
sense.
could go there and not necessarily look at a podium and say, who's that guy again?
Right.
Like I have a base knowledge of the guys that you're going to hear from. Now, there's a million other guys that are there too. They're at the, the side they still do the side tables?
sure.
The million of those other guys too, and there's value in that too. Like Evan probably knows every one of those guys as well. But I always felt like if you could just get a base knowledge of, I don't know, say the top 50 to
totally.
75 players that you're going to hear from, and you have an idea, okay, I know that's the guy from Texas. That's the guy from Georgia.
Yeah.
I felt like I was so much ahead of the game because I went, believe me, there were times I went and I didn't know anything more than just
You're coming off Super Bowls, Paul. You can only do so much.
correct, Mike.
Right?
You, just, you need
get
some
back,
downtime.
hungover.
For better or worse, we're in a much different spot now where this matters a little bit more than it did when they were coming off the Super Bowl. I always love that about Senior Bowl and with the Combine. When you see the personnel from the Super Bowl winner or the teams that are participating in the Super Bowl down in Mobile, like they don't even care. Like they're not even watching. They're just like, whatever. Like we need like, a third corner and probably like a backup running back and
grab Josh Simmons. That'll be fine.
We'll be fine with this.
All pro in 2 years. It'll be great.
but
I do
yeah.
like that Josh Simmons. I watched a little bit of him, and he's
he's
a big mean dude. Let's grab
talented guy.
let's just grab Deshaun in Virginia here, so he doesn't have to hold on while we don't eat. What's up, Deshaun?
Hello guys, how you guys doing?
Hey, good.
We're back.
Well, one thing, the few things I want to touch on. One is, I hear you guys talk a lot about Travis Hunter or whatever, but like this is my thing on like if I'm willing to take the best corner in the draft, I'm taking Will Johnson.
And we lost him.
If I'm trying to take the best receiver in the draft, I'm taking
lost
Zach
him.
McMillan.
We lost you, Deshaun.
When it comes,
That's all right. We're all right. So we're going to jump real quick. We're going to take a little break, not eat, hang out, but give you guys a break, give a chance for our audio to get back up here. So we will see you guys after this brief break.
Isn't it time to get exactly what you want? Welcome to Red Hot Deal Days from Verizon, where you get your pick of our best deals. Like My Plan, where you can pick the perks you want and save on every one. For limited time, bring your own phones to a Verizon store and you can get My Plan for our best price ever. Get exactly what you want in your phone plan and only pay for what you need. Bring your phones to your Verizon store today and get My Plan. These deals won't last. It's your Verizon.
With FedEx One Rate, you can ship to your student for a simple, predictable flat rate. Send a box full of home-baked treats that say, "Your father and I miss you." Or send a box full of instant noodles that says, "Your father and I would like you to stop asking us for money." Either way, one rate fits all. FedEx One Rate. 2-day shipping, one flat rate. Starting at $14.50. Visit FedEx.com/OneRate for details. Exclusions apply.
Episode of Pats from the Past podcast. Matt Smith alongside Paul Perillo. Pleased to be joined by number 70 on your scorecard, but number 1 in our hearts, at least today, Paul.
Absolutely. He's right next to me.
Yeah, and you better be careful.
Yeah.
And that's Logan Mankins. Logan, thanks for coming in. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, really appreciate it. All right, Logan, when we start these with everybody, because maybe people know what some ex-Patriots are doing, but I think there's a lot of people that go, Logan Mankins, where is he these days?
Yeah.
What are you up to? I think fans would love to know that.
Well, I'm still here in New England. We live in North Attleboro still, just down the road from Foxborough, and we have a little farm, and we raise beef cattle, hay, firewood, all that kind of fun stuff.
Why is a Northern California kid, what is it about New England? Because I think, and I'm being very stereotypical here, I think people would be surprised. Patriot fans would go, okay, his career's over, finish it in Tampa. He's going to go back to Northern California at some point in time. Why still New England? I mean, this is somebody who loves New England, has lived here his entire life.
Yeah, well, we had lived here for 9 years before I got traded, and then the timing of the trade was school was about to start, so my wife and kids stayed here, and I went there just for the season at Tampa. And then we did that. Then I came back after the season, and my daughter was in high school, so we didn't want to make her move while she was in high school. So I went to Tampa for the season again, and they stayed here. And then by the time I retired, we just made the decision that our oldest is in high school. Let's let her finish high school, and then she was graduating high school. Our next one was coming into high school, so we just made the decision to stay here and make this our forever place. So
That's great.
Yeah, because I was one of those that I would have said, Logan Mankins, he'll be back on the ranch out, and it was at Cathy's Valley.
Yeah,
Cathy's Valley, California.
town out there.
I figured you'd be long gone and hard to find, and then I show up at Bishop Feehan, Matt.
Yeah.
And
so
for
Logan,
one of those classic Bishop Fenwick, Bishop Feehan tilts
Right.
in the Catholic Central League.
Right.
And there's Logan Mankins.
Yeah.
So, Logan, Paul's office is now next to mine. And I'm regaled weekly with, how great Fenwick is. Fenwick kicked his team's ass, blah, blah, blah. And he tells me, he goes, oh, you wouldn't believe this. I ran into Logan Mankins. Other than Brewski, who we know is obnoxious on the sidelines, is Paul the most obnoxious parent of a kid that you've run into at a high school game? And he's got to be, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't get to see him during the game, but he's always very gracious in defeat. So,
well, see, he's being kind. I usually bitch about the referees for about a half hour, but it was funny. This is kind of a funny story. So last year, when Logan's son Case Mankins is a tremendous two-way player for Bishop Feehan, and my older son Will, they're the same age. Not as tremendous a two-way player for Fenwick, but he does well. So we're at Fenwick 2 years ago, and it was one of those games where I was, hell-bent for leather. Like, if I could have found an official in the parking lot, things could have been bad. And I see Logan after the game. I go, did you see that hold they missed in that touchdown? And Logan goes, and ain't holding if they don't call it.
Yeah.
So, but he was
spoken like a true offensive lineman.
Someone holds every play.
Well, what was great is my friends are constantly, as you probably get a lot of this, they're constantly busting my balls. Oh, big tough Paul, like, he talks to Tom Brady, he talks to Teddy Bruschi. Why don't you tell, where's all your boys? Where's Mankins? Where's all your boys? So don't you know Logan comes over at the end of the game. You talk about being gracious in defeat. Gracious in victory, he comes over after the game, says goodbye to my wife and I get the bro hug. I got a little bro hug in there, which you like to make fun of me about for being a fraud.
Love it.
So all of my friends now are looking like, wow, you really do know those guys. I go, what do you think? I worked there for 20 years and never met anybody?
Right.
So it was. It's been kind of nice. Case played some basketball last winter, so I bumped into Logan a few times, and he was here in Foxborough at the draft party too. So he's been around.
And Logan, and I can verify Paul, because Paul was saying this to me when he came back. He goes, "You're not going to believe it," and I'm not surprised. He goes, "I think Patriots fans would not be surprised as well. Regular guy, nice guy, parent who isn't screaming and yelling." And swearing at the referees like most of the other parents are.
Fee hoodie.
Right.
With a hat probably just like that. Was it Draper Farms?
Yeah, Draper Farms.
A hat, you would not have any idea that this is a decade-long NFL player, 10-plus years NFL player with the amount of Pro Bowls and All-Pros, and you would have no idea just sitting in the stands watching his kid just like everybody else.
Right. And I hope this doesn't come across, in a way it's sort of, as I'm thinking about it in my mind, that somebody could take it as an insult, and I hope it would never be that way. But Logan, as the second greatest guard in franchise history, are you okay being behind John Hannah?
Yeah, that's fine.
Who, by the way, I spent some time...
It wouldn't change my life any if you said I was first or 10th.
No,
so
I get it.
I'd still be the same. So.
But I don't know if you ever had a chance to really, watch Hannah or anything like that during the days. Bit. And I spent some time with John a couple summers ago down on his cattle farm down in Alabama. Crusty, great Patriot and great guy. I think you guys would connect.
Yeah, I've met him a few times, and we would swap stories, and it was great meeting him and hearing all the great things he had to talk about.
And he just started yelling at you about not running the ball enough? That's all he ever does to us.
Well, he said he liked running the ball because he didn't like to pass block, and that pass blocking's pretty tough, so especially against the talent they have nowadays.
He loved watching you play. He loved watching you play. And I would say, as an outsider, for somebody to get a stamp of approval from somebody like John Hannah, that means a lot more than Paul Perillo or Matt Smith or any other Tom, Dick, and Harry, because there's a legit guy. Well, and he loved watching you play.
Yeah, and John, he was respected by everyone, his teammates, his opponents, other coaches. So that's always what I wanted if they wrote I was good in the paper, that was great, but I wanted my teammates, I wanted to earn their respect, and I wanted opponents not to want to play me, so that's how it was.
Did you think when you were coming out, did you think you were going to be a first-round pick?
I didn't know. Everyone told me probably a second rounder, and it was funny. The day of the draft, me and my wife had a little apartment in Fresno, and we had a little draft party, and just people kept showing up more and more. Like my dad, he likes to have a good time, so he was inviting everyone he saw, whether he knew them or not. So that was always great.
Doesn't make him a bad guy.
No, but we're sitting there, and my offensive coordinator from Fresno was one of his best friends was with the 49ers, and he calls me. He goes, I just talked to my best friend. They're taking you with the 33rd pick. I was like, oh, sweet. Right down the road from here. And then I was like, hold on, someone else is calling me. And I click the phone over, and it was Scott Pioli. He's like, we're taking you right now. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So it was great. I think I was very fortunate to come here. It worked out the best to come here. I'm glad that the Niners weren't picking 32 and the Patriots were.
So you obviously, it did work out. You were part of a lot of wins here, and you had a great career. Did you think it at the time? Like you were so close to being close to home, and now you have to go to New England, which I can't tell you how many players will tell you, I didn't really even know where New England was because they think it's a state and not a region. What were you thinking about the culture, both the culture with the team and the culture shock of going from West Coast to East Coast?
Yeah, I wasn't, like you said, totally aware of. They said New England. I was like, okay, that's on the East Coast, but I didn't know it was like right outside of Boston. I didn't know where the stadium was or Foxborough or any of that stuff. And guys are like, oh, you're going to go play with Tom Brady. And I'm like, I'm not even sure who Tom Brady really is, right? I didn't watch that much NFL football. Up until my senior year of high school, I loved watching NFL football. And then once I got to college, I kind of stopped paying attention and had many other things going on. So,
is that because Is it because it was so much for you to play, it took so much physically, mentally, and everything like that, that when the time came that you had, quote, your own time or downtime or however you want to call it, I got other things I want to do that interest me rather than sit and watch this because I'm living and I'm, at a Division I school, you're working. It's a job.
Yeah, and the schedule kind of makes it that way. So in college, you play on Saturday. Sunday, you go in for lifting. You watch the game, and you have your conditioning. So that's most of your Sunday while NFL football is on. So you could watch games on Monday night and Sunday night, but other than that, during the day, you were usually busy. So we didn't watch a lot of it. And as I got older in college, I already had my first daughter and everything like that. So the longer I was in college, the more responsible I had to start becoming. And we had a lot of other things to do to support her and my future wife. So.
And now, great moments in history.
It's a totally different food. I'm talking about boneless buffalo wings as opposed to bone-in buffalo wings.
Right.
But isn't what's in the chicken finger the same as the boneless buffalo wing?
Not necessarily.
It doesn't
Very
taste.
different.
It
doesn't taste the same.
It does not taste the same.
Doesn't.
You can put anything in the boneless stuff.
You can. It's fake.
And I'm not even anti because of that. Although he's right. Fred's absolutely right. It's not necessarily the same. The bone, I think, gives it more flavor.
Yeah.
I think it's a better.
You ever have a bone-in
product.
steak versus a non-bone-in
Bone-in
steak?
fillet.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of much more
bone in
flavor.
here.
Get that bone in.
Boner.
That's what she said.
Boner.
That's another great moment from
Confidence. It's important to have when you're on the road. With Bridgestone tires on your car, truck, SUV, or minivan, you're riding tires you can trust. Bridgestone tires are engineered to give you peace of mind so you can focus on enjoying the journey. So whether you're on your morning commute, a cross-country road trip, or a relaxing Sunday drive, Bridgestone tires will be with you wherever life's roads may lead. Bridgestone solutions for your journey, available now at sullivantire.com. That's pretty good with the confidence. I like that. Confidence.
The whole thing needs work.
Yeah.
I know. I already got some flack here in the email from Gary saying what an amateur. Fred would have transitioned right into emails. Yeah, I know, Gary. I'm doing my best here. No one's like the big boss man, though. He's been doing this for far too long. And we're back here, so I think we're back up. And
Far too long. Is he trying to kick him out?
we're gonna
I think he just called him old.
Been doing this for far too long.
That's what he said.
That's not true. He should
Think
stay
he's
here
been doing it
forever.
It's a
the
different muscle,
perfect
though.
amount of time.
Hosting and
you gotta, like,
and
shift
being
gears.
I don't enjoy hosting.
You have to read words.
Yeah.
You got to man the phone lines, and we're gonna give
Yeah.
Patty a third chance here today. Patty, oh, there he is. I can hear him. What's up, Patty?
Hey, what is he doing right now? Leaving the team. That's what that's up.
Patty.
Okay, I'm gonna say that's not Patty.
Patty, are you there?
Damn.
Oh, there he is.
Patty, go. He did great today.
Oh God.
What's going on?
Patty.
Cooler? No, fuck off, man. Walk away.
Oh,
All right.
We got
All
a
right.
fight going on over there. I don't know what's going on there. I've never heard that one before.
This never happens when Fred hosts.
Sound like Patty was in the middle of a life
Fred
or death
would've-
battle.
would've hung
wouldn't
up
be-
that call 10 seconds earlier.
I kept waiting to hear Patty's voice.
I heard him for a second, but it seemed maybe like we
Patty,
melded.
Patty, just email us or something, Patty. We've tried.
Yeah, the TPX hotline today going on a little bit tough times here, but yeah, shoot us an email if you'd
Why
like.
don't you read some?
We've got a bunch of those actually, and I this is one that tickles my fancy a little bit.
Okay.
From Jake in Melbourne, but he only wants Evan's thoughts on this, so we'd like
Yeah.
to just get
Yeah.
Evan's thoughts
Please be
on the Cowboys discussing possibly trading Parsons. Sniff. Some rumors out, talking maybe they'd be open to it.
Come on, like what are we talking about here? What this is part of the whole like insider game I really don't enjoy, where it's like there's been conversations within the building about it, not anything real, but like
Who said that?
there's the janitor might have mentioned it or something like that. Like come on, like they're not going to trade Micah Parsons. This is all a negotiation tactic on both sides. They both want their number. I'm sure they'll come to an agreement at some point. He's not going to be available.
Why did he ask Evan? That's no fun at all. Come on.
So I have one that I'll direct to Evan, as long as we're directing things to Evan.
As long as I can just read emails.
What are your thoughts on the style of linebacker preferred by Mike Vrabel?
Ooh, good, Paul.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I love it.
I have heard a lot of they're going to get smaller, they're going to get faster, they're going to be more sideline to sideline. I think there are some elements of that. Typically when you run like an even front and 4-3 type defenses, you're shooting gaps, you're getting up the field. So you do want guys that can kind of, take out the trash, if you will. If those guys miss their shot, then there's going to be open gaps and things like that. So there is an element of that, I suppose. But I still don't think that they're going to be all of a sudden, Matt Milano's all over the place where everybody's 200 and 225 pounds. I still feel like most of his linebackers carried around 235, 240, which nowadays is average to above average in terms of weight and size. I feel like everybody is like shooting for like that, those 240 pound guys at this point. So do I think that you're going to have Jawan Bentley's out there?
Well, that's kind of what
by
I'm going to.
preference, probably not. But I don't think that necessarily means that Jawan Bentley's on the first flight out of here either. And they're going to completely, just jettison him because he's not 240 pounds.
We make fun
Long
of Evan,
answer,
like when we make fun of Evan that he's like lying in bed and Jess is like, what are you thinking about? Like, this is like when Lane, like, what are you thinking about? I'm like,
yeah.
Mike Vrabel's preference for linebackers. Like, that's totally something I've considered. And like I've said, there's holes on defense. So it's hard to say, well, let's create more holes, even if it really would fit preferably what you'd like to do. I think it's a really good question. I kind of side with Evan in thinking that I think Bentley's here this year. I mean, this is last year, his deal. But I wonder about Tavai. I wonder about Anthony Jennings a little bit. How do these guys fit into what they want to do? And how can they get more speed at the second level without, maybe going back to traditional safeties? Not having every safety be a box safety. You actually putting some speed and range on the back end. But it feels like one of those things where you start to pull one thread out, and then all of a sudden, like, even the small little bit of, things that you felt like, all right, well, we kind of have, like, I like Jawan Bentley. I mean, to be honest, I haven't been the biggest supporter of him. Like, I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a player that makes plays before they should happen. I think he kind of cleans up the trash a little bit. He brings physicality, but he's not one of these guys that is beating blocks and making plays. No question they missed him. So I don't know. I think that's a question for me, kicking the can down the road.
I've been reading some stuff about that. I think Mass Live had some stuff about that today. I just was curious what the ball knower.
Patty is okay. He apologized. He said, "I'll call in."
Did you fight
Thursday.
somebody?
I don't know, Patty. I expect a full story about what what was going down
you guys
there.
will have to keep me up to date. I'm
that's
going.
fine. You have to call
It
him.
is an
Leaving.
interesting point though that about pulling the thread because maybe ideally that he likes lighter linebackers that can cover more ground and all that kind of stuff, but you can't make more holes in the canoe, right? Like you already you're already taking on enough water. You start taking on more water because you're just trying to find a type of player that you like a little bit better than other people might like. And they missed Bentley last year, but that's a lot of that's front mechanics and like how you want to fit the run and how you want to play those types of things. If you're playing it differently, then it's a different type of player, and I get that, but I just feel like you have a good solid linebacker in Juwan Bentley. You do have some of those safeties that I think can be useful when used properly.
Yep.
Like if you start peeling back all these layers, then all of a sudden we're talking about something even bigger.
It's like for me, I think the focus is the defensive line and getting the edge really set, getting somebody who can get pressure. I think just like I'm talking about speed with receivers, they need to address pass rush this offseason. They need to draft/sign guys that impact the passer on third down. I mean, it was not good enough last year. You don't know if you can count on Christian Barmore, who's probably your best pass rusher. But after him, it's like who? Even if Anthony Jennings plays, he's early down run stopper kind of a guy. You can blitz Bentley a little bit, but I think they need some guys with some juice getting off that edge. Jeremiah writes in just kind of in line with what we're saying. If Hunter and Carter are not there at 4, then I'm all in on Campbell. I get Mike's take, but Mason Graham isn't at a premium position in a class that is loaded with D-line players, as Evan said. With Campbell, you at least have the opportunity to try him at a premium position, and if it doesn't work out, then you end up with a player that's not playing a premium position, just like Graham. So I get that, right? I'm with you, Ev. I'm not blown away by Mason Graham at 4th overall. It's just it feels a little redundant, and that you've got options later that aren't as big of a drop-off as they would be at the other spots.
Yeah, I think the argument, and Paul has kind of brought this up before in terms of like best player available, right? Just take the best player on the board regardless of position is like kind of the biggest argument for Mason Graham is that you just feel like he's the best football player.
He's better than Will Campbell.
Right.
If you think that. I'm not saying he is.
And so that they're in a position where they just need to stack talent on this roster and that's all that they need to do. I just don't necessarily look at it that way because I feel like there's more avenues than one to add players.
Yep.
So if you feel like you need that type of player in your front, which I'm not disagreeing that they might need, but if you really feel like you need like an impact 3 technique to rush the passer and to do those types of things, you can go find one in a different way that can still make that sort of impact on your football team and free up that 4th overall pick to use something, to draft something else. Whereas, like I said earlier, I don't know if you can do that at tackle. I don't know if you're going to be able to go out and find a comparable left tackle someplace else. Whereas I think that there's 3 techniques all over the place in this draft. Like you can get a rotational 3 technique that can rush the passer on 3rd down in like the 4th round of this draft. Like it's really truly that deep.
So I would also say the whole best player available, and I'm all for it. Like if we're talking about Travis Hunter and Will Campbell, there's probably a sizable gap in talent there. Now you could make an argument, well, you don't really need another corner because you have Gonzalez. Now, hypothetically, obviously you need 2. But there's such a difference, in my opinion, between the talent level of Travis Hunter and one of those other guys, same with Abdul Carter. I would take Travis Hunter. But if it's the difference between Will Campbell and Mason Graham, yeah, I think you could say that Graham's a better player, maybe. But I think you might get some people that say, no, Will Campbell, his arms are going to, they're going to measure up, and he's going to be a tackle, and he's every bit worthy a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
So, but either way, it seems pretty close to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that tackle is a huge need.
Yeah.
Whereas defensive line depth, those interior guys, Evan said this about 3 times in the show, like, you can only play so many 3 techniques.
Yeah.
And
you got Jeremiah Farms back in the mix.
But it kind of dovetails into, I am starting to read, I think Mike Giardi had something today. Sounds like Barmore's been working out, nothing specifically about his future, but maybe they have more information on how those blood clots are going to be affecting him, and they might know that he's going to be ready to go at the start.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm speculating, but I did think it was interesting that Mike, indicated today, sort of parenthetically, that he has been working out.
Yeah, I think it's good info. Let's give it another try here on the TPX hotline. It's been a little bit of a disaster today. Not my fault.
Reduced hosting and the phones aren't
Maybe it
working.
is, but let's check in with Brad from Ohio. Hey, Brad.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm glad we're talking about the draft because I got some questions, that hopefully you guys can mow over.
Oh, no.
Quick. I know. I'm going to blow you up.
I would go to the emails.
Yeah, sorry, Brad.
Do you want some more of my draft takes for you?
Give me, fire away.
I'll give you a couple more because we're struggling here with the phones.
Well, he could be reading emails too.
Yeah, we'll get to the emails here in a second. My other thing I'm interested in your thoughts on, Deuce. I don't know how much you did on the tight ends yet.
Yeah, a little bit.
But the tight ends to me are another strength of this class. Offensive side of the ball, I'd say running back and tight end are your two strengths on that side of the ball. And I look at these two tight ends at the top of the draft, and Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland from Michigan. And both those guys, I thought, I did most of my homework on them at the end of last week. I liked a lot both of those guys better than any of the receivers. Travis Hunter, I kind of treat as his own thing, like he's his own category. But I currently would have both those players over Tet McMillan. In terms of overall talent.
Sure.
Different positions, you got to build it differently, all things true, but just I thought both those guys were really, really impressive.
Me too. Yeah, I definitely watched both those guys. I just found myself as you got later, what do you think of Jaheim Bell? That's the question of kind of comping him. Very athletic guy. It was Mason Taylor from LSU is another one of those day two kind of later prospects. But no, I thought it was interesting. I saw you tweet that out. I was like, those – I just keep going back to Gronk was a number one, right? Gronk was a number one, and maybe that is the route. Maybe that's kind of the thing that we're not really thinking of right now at 4 overall. We're getting so focused on those top two guys, and it might be a little bit of a stretch, but I just got an email too. I want to bring this.
I did see Dane Brugler put out his top 100 today, and he had both of those guys. And I think I forget where Warren was, but the Michigan guy was 11. So two in the top 11
Warren
tight ends.
Warren is I never like to compare guys to guys like Gronk, but Warren's truly the closest thing I've seen from Gronk as in terms of a prospect since Gronk was in the league. He is really just has all the same traits. It's just probably not going to be as good as Rob Gronkowski is as an overall package, but he's 6'6", 260 pounds. He can block his to his weight. He can use his size down the field at the catch point. He's a better route runner and more explosive than what you would think at that size. The only knock on Tyler Warren is that he's older. He's going to be 24, 25 as a rookie. So some people, are ageist like that in the draft, and it just turns them off on that. Loveland is to me is a lot like Brock Bowers, really explosive player and similar player to Brock Bowers. If you don't want to go that far, a Sam Laporta or something like that, that ilk of receiving tight end, explosive receiving tight end. I thought with Loveland, how fast he is at that size just pops right off the film at you. So I'm excited about those two guys as well.
This is a good email because I know you had a tweet one of those days when I was going through things.
This is my half-baked ideas.
No, this was Nick Scarton.
Yeah.
I really liked him. Him. Before I even saw your thing, I think he's raw, but I just think he's a bull in a china shop, and he is.
Of pass rush moves in his bag, but both of them are that type of Patriot typical edge rusher of like, they got some size, they have some power to their game. I would say Stewart maybe a little bit more is like sort of like that raw specimen. Stewart's like 6'5", 280 pounds, length for days. Like he's like in a lab to play like defensive end in the NFL, but just a little bit raw in terms of his hand usage and his instincts and things like that. Scoring to me is a little bit more like thicker, a little squattier, but like he's got great quickness, and he's got a really good ability to him at that size to move, and a very good athlete for his size. So both those Aggies are going to go very, very high. And like when I get to this point of the draft, I'm always like, so Texas A&M had two first-round picks on their defensive line, and they still stunk. Like I just don't understand how this happens. Like it's just one of those things. And they have some guys that are going to come out over the next couple of years.
I want to say their quarterback got hurt.
Yeah, and their offensive line, I guess, wasn't good because I always text Barth and I'm like, how did this happen?
Right.
Like,
I think they only lost one game
like,
with their regular quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. I might be confusing them with somebody else, but I think that was a part of the story for A&M.
It's great to have Barth to go to with those kind of random weird questions where you're like,
yes,
how?
He's my context guy, right? Like, I can watch the film and tell you who I like. But
there are two edge guys from South Carolina too.
Yeah, so Kennard is one of them. He's more of like that, like Joshua Uche, screamer off the edge, lighter, that sort of thing. The other one I think is I can't remember off the top of my head if they have two. I know they had A&M definitely has two. Those two guys are going to go in the first round. But Kennard is the other one from South Carolina that tends to be talked about in that like top 50, top 40 range. And, but he's more of like a finesse.
It's one of those two that I think
rusher.
they had bookends and they dominated some game that I was watching late in the year. It was another one of those UCLA ones for me. Like, he's pretty good. Oh, yeah, he's like the 17th rated prospect. Good call.
Yeah. I like Kennard a little bit, but he's light. Like he's gonna have play strength and like those types of concerns. Like my guess is that he'll be like more of like a situational pass rusher at this level than a guy that's gonna play every down.
Yeah,
But
Kennard was the only one I watched. I mean, just throw some other names of guys that kind of tickled my fancy a little bit. Tuamolau from Ohio State. You guys obviously know him. Landon Jackson, big. Not pass rusher though. Like some of these guys, I'm like, I need an element of pass rush. I can't just have the the Jack Sawyers of the world. Like I don't know, but I just think there are a lot of guys with some speed and some interesting traits here.
got Mike Green.
Let's go back to the email here. As battling
Mike
through
Green
some,
was up
Mike
high
Green.
too.
Woo!
In that Brugler. I want to say he was like 10 or 12.
He's got a bag. That's for
That's
sure.
the Marshall guy.
Yeah, he's from Marshall. He played really well against Ohio State during the season. Played really well at the Senior Bowl. So he did face some tougher competition.
Yeah,
and
he's
did
one
pretty
I'm
well.
not as familiar with because of the school, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've
His
heard
pass
a lot
rush
about
ability
him
is
in the last couple of weeks.
Legit. Now he's another undersized. Is he going to be able to play all three downs? Is he going to be able to have the length? His length is well below average, so he's not necessarily like the biggest or the strongest of guys at the point of attack. But he had some moves on those Ohio State tackles that were just filthy, So he can rush the passer for sure.
Read some emails here. James Pettigrew, the most interesting man in the world?
Patriots
fan in the world. Alive. Sorry.
There's some that are dead.
All I could think about when the blowout was happening was Fred's impression of Tom's speech. Instead of honor, he was screaming, "Whose dynasty? Your dynasty. Your family's dynasty."
That's true.
That's too bad we don't get to get some Freddie reaction here today on the. Well, you went up and spoke with him, didn't you, yesterday?
Yeah, I just think he was like me, it's just a terrible game.
He always lives on there.
It was just such a boring game.
Poor Paul. He just wanted a good game.
I just wanted to watch a game.
No
I
such
probably
luck.
would have started rooting for whoever was losing.
Yeah.
I was kind of rooting. I was rooting for Kansas City just because of the unique nature of what they were trying to do.
I knew you would.
But I didn't. Honest to God, I really didn't care much, and because I kind of like Philadelphia's whole thing. I know people hate Philadelphia almost as much as Kansas City around here. I saw a lot of rooting for a meteor strike and no Super Bowl, kind of comments at the beginning
they broke
of
the
the
record
day.
again, Paul.
I think I would. I mean, it was stunning. I'm glad you brought that up. It was stunning. The most people ever watched the Super Bowl for the 59th consecutive year.
It was also stunning that it peaked right in like towards the end of the second quarter, and then everybody watched halftime, and
they
then,
dropped off
and
after
then it was
the.
that. I wonder why that was.
I did see that.
The
After,
guy everybody thought stunk the halftime.
Who Drake
show.
is?
no, see, I just thought people want to watch the halftime show, and the game was a blowout, so they stopped watching. I didn't take that as a shot at Kendrick. Maybe I've missed out on a lot of other things with that show, so maybe that's another one I don't know about.
Interesting.
I didn't take that as a shot at. I thought it was like the game was over.
Right. I'll watch halftime.
Everybody,
and I'm out.
everybody watches the halftime show, and then they were like, "Well, why am I going to go back? It's
Yeah.
27-0. I just saw
Yeah.
the show."
I just like
That's
what
it.
else are you gonna watch? Because all other programming is on it. Like is
That's
on
a good
hold for
point.
the
Like
night,
it's not like
right?
60 minutes.
It's not like you're
Right.
changing the channel.
Right.
Like I guess like nowadays with streaming and stuff like that, I guess you could go watch your show that you're like binging or whatever. But
You're probably right. That's probably like people. Some loser is like, "Yeah, I'm going to show them. I'm going to change the channel. Not going to get my rating point."
Yeah, right. You don't even have a ratings machine. Brandon Maine with a little rant here. I gotta shout out to these Patriot fans. And he said he sent this text to his dad, which he cleaned up for the air. But let's let it rip. I now feel safe to say this. All of the Mahomes is better than Brady people can suck it. Brady's teams never got rolled in the Super Bowl like Mahomes has twice now. Brady never played as poorly in the Super Bowl as Mahomes has twice now. And Brady beat Mahomes both times they met in the playoffs when he was in his 40s to boot. An AFC championship and a Super Bowl. Screw the Chiefs. Screw Mahomes. There was only one GOAT, and his name is Thomas Edward Patrick Brady.
I love that email. I couldn't agree more.
I would agree with the last sentence.
I
The other one, I
couldn't
just
agree
don't really see any
more.
relevance in the other stuff. But there's a fact. It's a fact. They played twice with everything on the line, and Brady beat them both times.
Yeah.
That's fact, not opinion.
A little love here from I guess it's Reynaldi. For Evan. Evan, I was unfamiliar with your game, not football knowledge, but music knowledge.
Yeah.
I did not know you were such a Kendrick fan, and I enjoyed the callback to some classic albums. Now, to kick off the off-season topic, what are your top 3 Kendrick albums? No ties allowed.
Top 3 Kendrick albums. Oh man. I mean, Good Kid, Mad City will always be my number one. It came out when I was in college, so it's just on top of me loving the music, it's also just a nostalgic thing for me that it was that is
Makes perfect sense.
That is the peak of your life.
Brings you back to a different time.
Right. So Good Kid, Mad City, Money Trees is my favorite Kendrick song of all time. I can understand that some of those songs, like Money Trees, not exactly appropriate for the national audience. So maybe that was why he didn't play some of that type of stuff. I personally like To Pimp a Butterfly a lot. I know some people are not like the biggest fans of it, but All Right is probably like my second favorite Kendrick song of all time. And I was very disappointed that he didn't play it. I thought that is a banger. Like that one usually gets people going a little bit, especially also like King Kunta also gets people going. So I thought those
Saw a lot of people
were
complaining
two
that they
that
didn't play
like, because
that.
that's like a bop, you know, like that's the, yeah,
You bop your head to it
exactly.
like this,
Yes. And then, Section 80 is one of the best mixtapes of all time. So
I mean,
there you go.
Ball knower, Kendrick knower.
He is.
Yeah.
He likes his rap
Yeah.
game.
He knows it.
Yeah.
Ev is a
my
he's a
my
rap
other favorite
connoisseur.
rapper of all time, we don't talk about him anymore. So
all of the lights, all of the
it's
lights.
little struggles this weekend on the Twitter machine.
Hey, his girlfriend looks great. We might need Paul for this one. Craig and Charlotte writes in, I read that Chooks Okorafor was released ahead of free agency. Can anyone explain the mechanics of this? If Chooks wants to keep playing, why wouldn't we just let him sign with another team and at least maybe his contract factors into the comp pick formula? He probably isn't signing huge contracts, so maybe it doesn't matter either way, and this gives him a head start? Are they doing him a solid here? I don't know. I mean, I knew he left the team. I didn't know like what that entails, though, once the contract comes at the end of the season.
If I were Mike Vrabel, I would just get, you would not get a comp pick for him.
Yeah.
But no, regardless. But if I were Vrabel, I would just want him out of the building ASAP. Like, he quit on them last year. He didn't want to play.
Yeah.
So why belabor it?
I also just like look, maybe we've been talking all show about how there's not enough tackles, so like you never know. But if you're another team, like he literally just quit on his last team and said, I'm going home with my, I'm taking my ball home. Like you really would want to put any faith in that guy again to come back. Like to me, that was probably the worst move that Elliott Wolf made last offseason was putting any ounce of trust in the fact that Chukwuekorfor was going to be a solid, reliable starting tackle for the Patriots last year.
Left tackle?
I would not touch that guy. If
And
I
not
was
every lost unrestricted free agent warrants a compensatory pick. Like there's factors involved: how much the guy signs for, how much he played for you, how much he plays for the new team, how many guys you sign as compared to how many guys you lose.
That would be the biggest thing to me is like they're going to so offset any guys that they lose this year by the spending that they do bringing in new players that I would be shocked if they were awarded any comp picks.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully they won't be.
If they aren't, then we have bigger problems.
Hopefully they're signing, T. Higgins and, who knows, Ronnie Stanley. And, we're not worried about how many guys we're losing. We're only worried about bringing guys in.
Elle from Wisconsin chiming in here about my hosting. Mike, phones aren't working. Also, Mike keeps going to calls instead of emails. I think ChatGPT might be able to help text to speech if you're like me and reading is hard. It is hard. Pressure's on. You got to, blast these things out. So thank you, Elle, for keeping me honest. I don't know if you're waiting on the phones. Do we go back to the phone?
I wouldn't.
No.
All right, we're not going. We've had too many.
I do the blackjack theory, and I would push away.
So if you're holding on, call back on
Thursday.
Thursday.
Got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Yeah, we're gonna fold them on the calls today on the TPX hotline. But I'm blasting through emails here, left and right. Ken from New Jersey chimes in. The one thing that surprised me the most in the game was that Reed and Mahomes didn't seem to make any adjustments during the game. When you look at Super Bowls 51 and 53, the Patriots definitely changed things up when Plan A wasn't working.
How'd they adjust in 42?
Not good, Bob.
When the Giants had four guys that kicked the crap out of their offensive line for 60 full minutes.
It's a great comp to that because that was the same kind of thing. I remember people that just stop running the ball, like that kind of stuff. But I don't really.
They scored 14 points and 7 of them came on the last drive.
I don't really see what the adjust. Like I felt like they were always kind of moving the ball in Super Bowl 51. It didn't feel like did they really adjust anything, or did they just stop making stupid mistakes and they started getting stops, and then all of a sudden
the other team started doing stupid stuff
and that too,
turning the ball over.
So this is a similar but separate pet peeve of mine about the adjustments thing, and I say this.
That's why I asked you early in the show because that's been a prevalent theme. Is Andy Reid is a terrible coach.
So, and I say this, I know this is how this is going to come off, so I'm going to try to preface it by saying I say this with all due respect, and I truly do. Would you know if they made any adjustments? Would you know?
Right.
Half the time, I don't even know. Would you be able to sit down and
came
say,
out in a single wing and all
what
is
this?
They
really, they did this instead of that in the second half, or they did, and they went into the game with this plan and they pivoted at halftime to no offense or anything, but that's a big one of mine. You really don't think that Andy Reid, maybe one of the greatest offensive minds of all time in the history of the NFL, just called the same 5 plays over and over again against the Eagles defense?
I don't think. Listen, I'm like you. I'm an idiot. I don't think it was the plays. I think it was the execution. I know that we heard this all year here, and it frustrated us.
Yeah. But
when you throw a 15-yard crossing route to DeAndre Hopkins and he just drops it, what are they supposed to do to adjust? I don't think the Eagles' secondary did anything special. They were better than the guys they were covering. At some point you just tip your cap and say they got us. They're better. They were probably better in 9 out of the 11 spots. Maybe 8 out of the 11 spots. The Eagles defense, Chiefs offense. And again, Kansas City's MO is it doesn't really matter because we have Superman. Mm-hmm. And Superman turned into a puddle on Sunday. I don't think you can overstate how badly he played. Maybe to me it was just so jarring because he's so good.
Yeah.
But he looked like
completely overwhelmed.
Kerry Collins when he played for the Colts. He was awful in that game.
I so prefer this narrative though than if the Chiefs had won and granted this would have been a year maybe where they were a little bit down. They weren't as talented on offense as they might have been in the past. But again, the narrative was you have to have a unicorn at quarterback. That's the secret. And I kind of prefer now we're talking more about the trenches and building the team through the draft and doing it the right way.
You have to have that unicorn.
But
that's a unicorn.
Which one?
The Eagles roster
hitting
is a
on
unicorn.
hitting on the draft picks like they do. That's a good point.
It is, but I
Yeah.
do think for whatever reason, I said this in the beginning of the show, whatever reason it feels more attainable. I think that because it's like getting a guy like Brady or Mahomes to play quarterback for your team in his prime, like, and line it all up and everything like that.
I agree.
It's literally like getting struck by lightning, right? Like, especially in Brady's case, no offense, 6th round pick, like falling in your lap and having that happen. But like just in general, like it feels like being struck by lightning. Whereas with the Eagles, like that's just good GMing, right? Like you had a guy that just put together a great roster.
How many points do you think the Eagles would have scored on Sunday if Gardner Minshew was their quarterback? Or like Aiden O'Connell?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, and I do think the way
Like-
they run their offense is very much because of what Hurts can do.
Jalen
And,
Hurts is not that guy that Evan's talking about. But it's hard to say he's not a top 10 quarterback. I know a lot of people said yesterday they'd probably put him 5. I think that's too high. But he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like they have nothing at quarterback. Evan's favorite nothing at quarterback, Brock Purdy. Like, it's not like they have, like, a net negative.
So you're saying if the 49ers had Jalen Hurts, they would have won the Super Bowl last year?
Yes.
Like, thank you. That's all I've ever said.
Yes, but
And
I thought
you just hate Brock Purdy.
No, but I
bad
think
quarterback play.
No, but
That's
I
what
think
hate.
Hurts is pretty good. Like I think
me too.
I don't think they lost. We disagree because I don't think they lost the game because of Brock Purdy. I think that Jalen Hurts would have been that much better than Brock Purdy, and that might have been enough for you to win an overtime game. Like, you know what I'm saying? What I'm saying?
Yeah, I also just
I think Jalen Hurts is pretty good.
I do too.
I was a little surprised with how well he threw the ball the last 2 playoff games because he hasn't really done that as much this year. In that game the other day, I mean, he made some unbelievable throws.
Yeah.
He didn't have to throw it that much. I think he only threw the ball like 22 times or something like that. But
I think it was like 18 to 21, something like
the,
that.
the bombs were perfect. The third down, he had one bad throw. I thought one bad throw all night, and that was the horrific call on Trent McDuffie for happening to go near Dallas Goedert after the ball had already passed.
Yeah.
Like, that's another thing in this game. Patriots fans, if the Chiefs won that, switch the uniforms. The Chiefs wore green and the Eagles. If that game unfolded exactly the same way and all those calls went against the Eagles, and they lost 40-22 because the other team just kicked the snot out of them, people would have said it was fixed.
Yeah. What was
that? Was the most blatant overcorrection on officiating. Now, it didn't matter a lick.
Yeah.
Because after that one horrific offensive pass interference they called on A.J. Brown, which I thought was horrific.
Yeah.
There was about 8 calls that would have, like, normally either knocked back. How about the strip sack when Mahomes got hit in the face?
Yeah.
I didn't hear anybody saying, Will Anderson didn't even touch him.
Right.
And by the way, in my league, that's not a penalty. I'm good with no call on
It's
that.
about time the Chiefs don't get every penalty.
But this is my point. If that
look,
happened,
when the game is straight up, they lose.
if that happened the other way, people would have said that the Chiefs only won.
When the refs aren't handing
But
them
you're
the
missing
game,
the
they
point.
get blown out.
They would have said they handed them the game if they got those calls.
I know. I'm just
And that had nothing to do with that game. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, that call on Trent McDuffie was criminal.
Yeah.
Criminal.
Yeah, that was the one right at the top, right? Like the first.
The second series. They were going to go 3 and out the second series.
Yeah.
After losing the
Right.
4th down completion on a bad call.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They were going to go 3 and out, and then they did that. How about the blown up screen pass that they call, like the late hit would have been 2nd and 26.
Yeah.
And they call, like, the guy went by him and knocked over Saquon Barkley. Like,
Yeah.
the game was poorly officiated again, but no one cares because the Chiefs lost.
It's about time.
It was a blowout. Drew from Walla Walla writes in. I was
Whereas
listening.
I just hate officials, not teams.
This is from Drew from Walla Walla.
Hey,
I was
what's up,
listening, as I
bruh?
always do, to Patriots
Happy
Unfiltered,
birthday, Friday.
and enjoyed the discussion about Patriots who should be in the Hall until Deuce mentioned Rodney Harrison, and Paul immediately, without any hesitation, announced, Rodney was my favorite Patriot ever. Not going to lie, that was a little bit hurtful.
I can't lie.
What do you have to say to your friend Drew?
I can't lie, Drew. It's true.
It wasn't really from Drew, but well done,
How do you know?
Stephen.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, Drew's number 2. Drew's
Well,
he
I gotta
drafted
say,
number
like
2.
knowing you, Paul, like Drew
I
still
love
connects
Rodney.
to fan Paul, whereas Rodney, your love for Rodney probably is just more of a appreciation.
Yeah, he
for
was
him
better
as a
than me
worker.
professionally.
right. Like Drew was just when you could have fun and not, be a fan.
No,
and,
I really enjoyed watching Drew play, and I did have a decent relationship with him. When I covered him, and he was great. But I think it's a little bit more difficult for a quarterback, to have that. Whereas Rodney was fit. Did you get to cover Rodney at all, Evan?
No.
Was he
it
already
was
gone?
way before my time,
wasn't even
unfortunately.
born
But Rodney was one of my favorite players as a fan.
He was just so easy to talk to in the locker room. You would have loved him because he'd give you some of the other. He'd make fun of you.
Oh, I love those types.
He would make fun of you for breaking down the stuff, and he would try to throw you off the scent. But
Yeah.
he'd talk to you a little bit about what some of the things. Remember when they used to switch him and Ty Law?
Yeah.
Law would play safety and Rodney would play corner to do the bumps and be physical and all that stuff. He would talk about some of that stuff a little bit, usually after the fact only. But he was great to cover. Rodney.
Who used to do that to me was Devin. I would go up to Devin with like a real football question and he'd be like, I've never heard of that in my life. And I'd just like have this like look on my face like, am I just a moron? And he'd be like, no, I'm just kidding with you. But he'd always
That's
would
my
tell
Anthony
me the
Pleasant
joke,
with
like,
the two-gapping.
It'd be like 2 days later though. Like he wouldn't tell me in the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's even better.
He'd let me sit on
Cover
it for
3?
a while.
No.
Yeah,
Cover
it's
3,
like
I'm not
match
familiar.
coverage. I've never heard of that before. I have no idea.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Just real quick to plug my 2004 podcast will be coming out next week. Excited about that. But
humble brag.
Along these, humble brag. I was just trying to promote my work. But I
not so humble brag.
Spoke with with Matty P for this, and one thing he said about this linebacker room was just how professional those guys were. He said his first year was here in 2004, and he said we got to mini camp, and I listened to those guys on the practice field, and the communication was so loud and crisp on every single play in OTAs. So he, first time as an NFL coach, that's what Matty P is witnessing with some of those guys. The other thing he said was like Mike Vrabel. He's like, Mike Vrabel was never out of shape. Mike Vrabel could have played a football game in the middle of April if you needed him to. He would have hopped right in there. So just some cool insight into that defense, how special it was back in 04. And, with Rodney Harrison in there, I mean, you get away from those things, and even when I got here, you still had the High Towers of the world, and you had still some of the McCourtys of the world. Some of these guys really generationally respected kind of players, but you get to the point now where you realize like, man, that's gone. Like those kind of guys where, I mean, he said they didn't even carry their playbooks around. They just knew it. They didn't need playbooks anymore. They knew what they were running all the time. You hope you can try to get back to that. I'm sure that's probably something Vrabel wants to do.
Yeah, and yet none of them can sniff the Hall of Fame. That's funny. Funny how that works.
Do you ever get tired of that?
What?
Just whining all the time?
No. Not when it comes to the Hall of Fame, which I think is the biggest joke about this sport
so
right
now. It is. We haven't had a show, right? That was Thursday? The Hall of Fame. I mean,
I've cooled off.
right.
Only a couple of minutes left.
Go.
Just interesting to me that only 4 people in the class.
Yeah.
They've changed it a little bit. What is it? 80% now you need.
I think so.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more challenging to get in, and the class is smaller, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. I'm not sure that I understand some of the guys that made the cut. I mean, obviously, Adam Vinatieri is going to be a Hall of Famer. So I'm not necessarily too concerned about the not on the first ballot thing. That's for other people. I was pleasantly surprised that Eli Manning didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And not because I'm an Eli Manning hater. I just don't really think he's a Hall of Fame caliber player.
Yeah.
I know he'll probably get in based on his 2 Super Bowls, but I don't really think that his body of work deserved it, so I was glad that he didn't get in right away.
Yeah, Reese talked to, is it John McClain? Am I thinking of the Die Hard guy?
Yeah, no, John McClain.
So, yeah, longtime Texans writer, like longtime NFL reporter, and he's in the room for the Hall of Fame voting, and he said there was a ton of Vinatieri support in the room to the point where it was like kind of shocking even to people that were in the room when the results came through that he wasn't going to make it on the first ballot. But he mentioned the 80% voting threshold. I guess that was maybe caught some people didn't know that, or like that was new this year, and it kind of caught some people by surprise. And so it sounded like it was really, really close for Vinatieri and for Luke Kuechly. and both those guys
Luke Kuechly's another one that surprised me not getting in.
They're gonna be married into the finalists next year, like they're grandfathered in
because they got a high enough.
and so like that's really just a matter of time. I gotta vouch for my guys. Like I still feel like it's too hard for some of these dynasty era Patriots to get into the Hall, but I think that reading some of the stuff post Hall of Fame, it definitely sounds like there are even some people that voted on it that were like, wait, Vinatieri didn't get it. Like,
no coach contributor.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, Bill's up next year, so we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll be headed there. Maybe Bill and Vinatieri.
Maybe.
Perhaps. Maybe
Bill's up.
Unless he comes back to the NFL. Well, football season may be over, but you can still score major style points this President's Day weekend at Bob's Discount Furniture. Get better sleep than ever with the affordable luxury of a Bobopedic mattress. Customize your living room with a modular sectional. Or kick back with the latest tech on Bob's reclining furniture. We're talking Bluetooth speakers, wireless charging, and power reclining seats. See how much you can save this President's Day weekend at Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. Last question I have for you guys. Are we reaching an oversaturation point with Peyton and Eli? Is this bit getting old yet? Have we seen enough of those two?
A little bit.
Do we get it?
I mean, I enjoy their
Jason
commercials,
Kelce.
but there's a lot. The Kelce's I'm done with.
No.
And that's going to get worse if Travis retires, because then it'll be the two of them together.
At least Peyton and Eli are funny. Like, I don't find Jason and Travis
it's not funny
Kelce
at all.
that funny.
I don't find it funny at all.
I mean, am I wrong? Am I just being a baby?
I don't find Travis funny. I think Jason Kelce's a little bit more entertaining, and I do think he actually talks ball pretty well. When they let him, when they don't just let him make him do the shtick of being Jason Kelce.
But I think that's all he ever does.
Yeah.
Shtick.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this trio. Paul and Fred.
I'm done with the
out on
Mahomes
Thursday.
and Indy Reid commercials.
You're
too.
done with that
Just,
one too?
You
You don't like Bundle Ruski?
I mean, that one's kind of funny, but
No,
there's just too many of them.
Too much.
They
Too
stink.
many.
All right, fellas. That's going to do it. We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.
The world's original podcast.